Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the Ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
I just received this as an email yesterday, and I thought about it, and maybe there's a lot of truth to this. Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in an attractive and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in sideways. Chocolate in one hand, wine in the other, body thoroughly used up and totally worn out and screaming, woohoo, what a ride. Good morning, everybody. Here comes Kate Smith and God Bless America. And then followed by a pledger with our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning. Oh, thank you very much, Kate Smith, and her great voice with God Bless America. Good morning. I'm Zeb Bell at Zeb at the Ranch with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and big tire sale going on. And then also some of our great advertisers, including Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland and Burley. And let's not forget our friends at Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Call Kelly and the crew at 734-6969. And now here she is, radio station operator, board operator, great announcer, journalist, car mechanic, gardener, mom of a young son that's going to be president of the United States. Good morning.
Your $50 is in the mail.
Oh, thank you. $50? Come on, kid. Don't you ever hear about inflation?
Ever heard of an empty pocket?
Yes, I have. How are you, Gina?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day. It's Wednesday, downhill slide for the weekday.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I just surveyed the weather, and I think Michael's going to talk to us about that in just a moment. It's going to be absolutely fantabulous.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to the weekend.
Oh, me too.
Not staying inside at all, ever.
Do we have a pledger?
We have Mr. Michael Rogers on for the pledge.
All right. Michael with the pledge, and then I'll jump in before the weather. Thank you, sir.
Morning, everybody. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very well done, Michael. And by the way, right now we're going to have MichaelRogersWeather.com, and Michael has the sponsor of the weather is Save On Shells. Wonderful, folks. These guys over at Save On Shells, they've got just the shells for your pick-em-up trucks. That's right. Protect those saddles, tack, tools, groceries, anything and everything with a Save On Shell. 1835 Overland and Burley. I'll tell you more right after Michael Rogers Weather.
You've got the next 12 days, maybe 13 of this nice weather. You don't have to do any surveying. Make sure you cut the grass in the middle of the week so you can go play golf on the weekend. But it's going to be fabulous. Our weather story for this week, it'll get warmer as you work your way towards Saturday and Sunday. 67 for the high today, 71 for the high tomorrow. Overnight lows are going to be rather comfortable, a little chilly, but otherwise no rain in the forecast, no major storms, no watches, no warnings. And there you have it. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Very well done. As always, the greatest weatherman in the world, MichaelRogersWeather.com. Brought to you by Save On Shells. And I got to tell you, Anthony, if you're listening out there this morning, this young man has such great service on his shells. Installation parts and service, and they've got the new ARE shells there, many, many different models, and also a fantastic selection of used shells. I'm telling you, if they don't have what you're looking for, they'll find it for you. These folks are good. How do I know so much about them? Because I bought a camper shell from Save on Shells, 1835 Overland in Burley. Number to call, 312-1525, Save on Shells. Got a couple of notes. Wait a minute, Deanne's putting notes down here, and that'll come up a little bit later. I want to remind you that tomorrow night, the Minidoka County Republican Meet the Candidate Night will be held tomorrow night, May 1st. May 1st tomorrow, May Day, at the Wilson Theater. The meet and greet will begin at 6:30 p.m. with the forum beginning at 7, and that is the Minidoka County Republican Meet the Candidate Night tomorrow night. Don't forget that. You know, I had a lady called the other day, and she said, we are absolutely ecstatic that you moved Lunch Bunch over to Denny's restaurant. She says, my husband and I just love the menu. We love everything on the menu, and we know when we go in there, we're going to get the greatest of portions and food, the service. It's unbelievable. Great food and service at Denny's restaurant, 611 Overland in Burley. And, you know, I mean, whether you want to go in there for breakfast or lunch or dinner, and I had that Philly cheesesteak omelet the other day. Knock your boots off, delicious. And it's just phenomenal. So stop in and enjoy at Denny's restaurant, 611 Overland in Burley, the home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch, and we really enjoy it. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. And real quick, before we get into one of our topics this morning, I want to remind you, too, you'll never, ever be in the dark if you stop into Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. They have, and they bought up a bunch of incandescent light bulbs in 40 to 60, 75, and 100 watt. And I don't know how many they've got left in the clear and the frosted, but you better stop in. And they've also have, along with that, they've got all kinds of other lights, too. CFL bulbs, lamps, outside lighting, everything, along with the selection of cords, cord ends, fuses, anything electrical, right there. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, where they provide warm winters and cool summers. Absolutely. I have a question for you folks, and this is a tough topic to get into, because out there in Radioland, there is going to be a person or a group of persons that are going to turn around and automatically they're going to start calling me racist. And it just shows the lack of mentality and intellect that they have. But this is a tough topic to talk about, and it's in regards to NBA owner of the Los Angeles Clippers. You know, now just hear me out on some of this, and I'd love to get your opinion. You don't have to be a sports enthusiast to follow this story because it's very, very pertinent to our times. Free speech in the privacy of your home, and it was taped unwittingly by a girlfriend that wanted to do you in financially. And you then, after the tape has been heard by literally millions all around the world, you're called a racist. Your verbiage was absolutely disgusting, which it was. And then you are forced out of business and made to pay a large fine of $2.5 million. Now, just a second, wait on this. If the tapes were obtained without knowledge of this individual, Mr. Sterling, and they were taped in his home, aren't we as a nation? Now, here's the question, and I want you to answer this morning. Don't you dare let me down. Aren't we as a nation opening up a Pandora's box of problems to the point where our free speech in the privacy of our homes or on our property is then possibly going to be subject to causing us financial disaster, financial ruin, and maybe lose any and all of the assets that we have, lose our job, possibly lose our families in a private conversation? What about a hateful neighbor? What about a hateful neighbor that tricks you into comments and leads you down the same path that Mr. Sterling is on? I really want you to consider this, because the girlfriend the girlfriend that made this tape, again, allegedly, unwittingly, of Mr. Sterling. She did this in a state where it's unlawful to do what she did, and she could be up on felony charges. But the main thing is, she has destroyed this man. She has destroyed this man. And the comment I'll make at that juncture is, his comments about race and people were despicable. Should never have been said. But the caveat is, he made them in the security and privacy, supposedly, of his own home. So now there's the question. Are we going down a toboggan hill that once we get to the bottom, we're all in a lot of trouble because we have thrown free speech and privacy away? That's the question. I'll do a couple of commercials, and I will expect my dear friends out there to call on that. Don't forget, Mother's Day is quickly approaching, and Valleywide Home and Ranch in Rupert has the perfect gift for Mom. It'd be a Mother's Day spa giveaway. Oh, it's a free 1-hour massage from Sublime Touch. Mom will love it. She'll just lay there and go, I love my family, I love my family. Well, you better get into Valleywide Home and Ranch and register today at 910 South Oneida in Rupert. And there's all kinds of ideas in there. Montana Silversmith jewelry and summer clothing, and if she loves to garden, they've got all the gardening needs right there at Valleywide Home and Ranch. 910 South Oneida in Rupert. You stop in and see them today. Hey, remember I was talking to you about Ed's Office Products at 1340 Overland and Burley? Well, all was on the spot. All was with the up news. Deanne just told me that Ed's office is almost empty. Why? It's just a shell, and today is the last day with really great deals. Percentages knocked way down, and Gloria says thank you for 40 years of support. She's going to close the doors tomorrow and go on a whirlwind worldwide tour. She's going to stop at Tahiti. She's going to stop over in Okinawa. She's going to stop in the Philippines. She's going to go all over. She's going on vacation. So stop into Ed's Office Products today. Closing doors at 1340 Overland in Burley. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
So, Zeb, I'm wondering if they live in a state, if this, whatever his name is, I don't even care, but does he live in a state where prostitution and extortion are legal? Because that's exactly what's going on here. That woman is 50 years younger than him. The only reason she hangs out with him is for his money, period.
I agree with you. Well, I agree with you, but now I want you to address the question I asked. If we go ahead like the NBA is going after this man and telling him he can no longer be an owner, they are fining him $2.5 million. He's losing all the sponsorships for his team. I guarantee you this man's life is ruined because of this taping. And again, I'll put the caveat in there. What he said was absolutely dastardly verbiage that should have never been said. But now my question to you is, what about if we start doing this? It's going to be a slippery slope for everybody.
It is going to be a slippery slope for everybody, and that's why I'm wondering about the whole prostitution and extortion, because she has used the whatever sports organization this even is. Like, once again, I'm just don't care that much about any of that sort of thing, but she has used them to extort money from him.
Mm-hmm. She, by the way, let me just interrupt you quick, and for those that are tuning in and aren't aware, it's the National Basketball Association, it's the Los Angeles Clippers, and the owner, Mr. Sterling. And this woman, and you've succinctly said it, she's a gold digger. She absolutely is 30 years younger than him. She has brand new cars. Did you see her getting into her fancy BMW yesterday outside when the media was trying to talk to her? She did this in an illicit, illegal way of taping him in the privacy of his home, allegedly. And so where do we go from here?
I don't know, because I think this is completely crazy. It's crazy that I agree he shouldn't have said what he said, but also if he's in his own home, he should be able to dance naked on the tabletops, and nobody know about it because that's privacy.
I agree. Now let me ask you this: you've called in before. You're very sharp. Let's say that you have a neighbor that does not like you, and you do not like the neighbor, and for some strange reason, this neighbor comes over and tries to buddy up with you and ask you questions about another neighbor that are very, very personal, etc. And you don't know you're being taped, and all of a sudden you find out after the fact, and this thing could have ended up in a court case. You might be sued, and or the neighbor's going to be sued, and you unwittingly supplied a lot of information on this. Isn't it the same thing? If we're going to go on the privacy of person's property and their home and do these kind of tapings, we're opening up a door that once it's open never will be closed.
Never. To me, it's so out of the realm of any sort of common decency that it's beyond the pale. It would be to me the same, on the same level as taping your private life and making it public.
Absolutely. I do appreciate your call, and we're going to take some other calls on this in just a moment. But now you finish the dishes and have a good day, okay?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call. Just think about it from the standpoint of it could happen to you. How many of you out in the audience, and I will be the first one to say me. You don't have to. I will. I've said things in the privacy of my home about organizations. I've said things in the privacy of my home about individuals. I've said things in the privacy of my home about certain situations. But now all of a sudden, if I have a vindictive neighbor or a family member or whatever, woo, baby, to court we go and possibly lose everything you've got. Give me a call. Hey, don't forget, you're invited to a meet and greet hosted by District 27 legislators, Speaker Scott Bedke. Oh, Scott's name's not that hard, Zeb. Speaker Scott Bedke, Senator Dean Cameron, and Representative Fred Wood. And it's all for Governor Butch Otter and Lieutenant Governor Brad Little. It's going to be at Sweetheart Manor on Thursday, May 8th, next week at 217 South Highway 27 in Burley. Hors d'oeuvres and refreshments. A lot of nice people next Thursday, May 8th at 6 o'clock, Sweetheart Manor. Caller, I'll be right there. Don't go away, I promise. And I also want to remind everybody, Penetron Soil Conditioner by Maisie, with a 20-year proven record of increasing yield and quality of all Idaho crops, speeding germination, reducing crusting, improving stands, stimulating root growth and microbial activity, and building structure. Soil structure. And you know what? The water savings alone will pay for the cost of the product. Hey, Penetron treated crops, larger crop yields, better quality. You better talk to your fertilizer dealer and crop advisor today. Don't wait. Do it now. Penetron by Maisie. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Zeb, can you hear me?
I hear you well, sir. Go ahead.
Perfect. It's already happening. The government is already listening into every conversation we have on our cell phones, whether we're talking to our neighbor. It's already happening. It's only a matter of time before one of these guys actually push something through or say something wrong that the government's not going to like, and they're going to come after whoever it is.
Well, okay, I'll give you an example of what you said is 100% correct, okay? I, from the get-go, and you know this if you've listened over the last many years, I said before Barack Obama was even elected as president the first time that I did not like the man, I did not like his ideology, I did not like his politics, I did not like anything about him. And automatically, the Democrats only across the United States, and especially right here in Magic Valley in Idaho, they came after me and called me a racist. Now, I don't like the man at all. Never will, never have. I don't like anything about him, but at the same time, I espouse that Condoleezza Rice should be president and other people of his race also were better qualified. So how come I'm a racist to one and not to the others?
Well, it's all control and power.
Absolutely.
If they can pull the puppet strings, the puppeteer is not being seen. Barack Obama, I still think to this day, is the puppet. There's higher powers behind him that are jerking his strings and telling him what to do, and that's why there's so much going on. There's, with with the Bundys, and then there's Benghazi and Fast and Furious and all this other scandals and IRS and everything else. As long as everybody is paying attention to what's going on, they can't see the main thing that's happening, which is our rights are being just thrown out the window.
I agree. Very well said, sir. I got another call. Call again. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. That was well said. Well stated. Caller, go ahead quickly. You're on the air.
Yeah, Zeb, how long ago was it that Al Sharpton said something about the Jews? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you start talking about Al Sharpton putting his foot in his mouth and being a race baiter, I mean, come on, Dwayne. Every day's an occurrence, sir.
Well, they didn't condemn him for, well, they got after him for saying something bad about the Jewish race, but they didn't fine him, or they didn't do all this stuff that they're doing to this Sterling.
Well, you know, Dwayne, listen to this for a quick second, and you touched on something that's very important here. 4 weeks ago, and I did a little checking in the archives, Bill O'Reilly on the O'Reilly Factor came out with an op-ed piece to start off his program, talking about blacks in America that weren't staying home and taking care of their families, and fathers that were skipping out on the families, unwed mothers and everything, and he went through this entire diatribe in his opening remarks. But he was okay. Then, and I said on the air the other day that Cliven Bundy really made a mistake and shot himself in the foot when he got off the subject of land and cattle and started talking about race in America. That's when he really got hurt. He said the same thing that O'Reilly had said in his opening remarks, but Cliven Bundy's called a racist.
That's true. Never thought about that. That's exactly the truth. The tone you say it, I guess. But the other thing, you know, Black Panthers, they're when they're on TV now, how many times you heard them refer to us as crackers?
That's right. That's right.
That, to the black people, the word crackers is almost equal in their minds, and we just laugh about it. We think, oh, that's all right. But to them, when they say it, boy, that is, you know, they're really insulting us.
Well, Dwayne,
about our color and our skin, you know. And then another thing, what about when Nixon had to resign? Mm-hmm. What did he have to resign for?
Well, it was the lies, innuendos, and the problems and the illegalities of Watergate that were tried to be stuffed under the carpet, but somebody swept.
No, that was the Clintons, the Watergate thing.
No, it wasn't.
Nixon was forced to retire or resign because they went in there and they bugged the Democratic Convention.
Yeah, but wait a minute, Dwayne. That was Watergate. That was Watergate. That was the Nixon administration, Watergate, with all the big shots underneath Mr.
Oh, you're right. Okay. I was off on another deal. But that was private. And Nixon went in there, and he did what he did, and he had to resign from his office.
That's right.
Just for bugging somebody.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something else. I hate to be rude to you, but you can see by your watch, I got a hard break here at the bottom of the hour. Think also very strong, and Deanne brought this up to me last night as we were watching the news. Think about this tape of Mr. Sterling. Think about in the privacy of his home and how he's been condemned and literally run out of business. And at the same time, the other day, John Kerry said some very bad, hurtful things about Israel being an apartheid state, and he's getting off scot-free.
Right. Well, and that's what my point was with Nixon, was when Nixon did it, he's a Republican. When these other people, these Democrats do it, they just, well, they slap their hands a little bit, but that's about it. They never do the extreme.
Yeah. I've got to do this hard break, Dwayne. I'm so sorry, but I appreciate talking to you. Thank you, sir. God bless. Have a good day. Caller, I'll be with you in a moment. Please stand by. Travel Lube Supply, 1050 West, 203 South of Hebron, 438-8730. Oh, my goodness, if they got bolts. They got bolt bins. They've got metric and standard bolts. They've got the slogan, have bolts will travel. They'll keep them filled. I'm telling you, you're never going to run out of bolts. They've got them all for you. They got your tools, your oils. They've got everything. All your filters. They can clean the air filters, save you money. What are you waiting for? Call them right now, 438-8730. Travel Lube Supply. They deliver the goods. Hey, real quick, we are now going to, I know I'm running late, we're going to have the Capital Press Ag Minute, and it is brought to you by Lennox Home Comfort Systems, whether it's a gas furnace, air conditioner, or a heat pump, through our friends at Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley.
Today's Ag Minute brought to you by the Capital Press, the West Ag Weekly.
Cattle on feed in U.S. feedlots with capacity of 1,000 head or more on April 1st was down 1% year over year at 10.86 million head, down 64,000 head from April 1st, 2013, according to the USDA's National Agricultural Statistics Service latest cattle on feed report. It's the 20th consecutive month of year-over-year inventory decline and the lowest April on-feed number since 2010, according to economist Ron Plain. March placement into those large feedlots were lower than trade expected. The industry expected placement would be up 1.6%, but they were down 4.7%, Plain said. This is Hannah Browse.
For more agriculture news and information, turn to the West Ag Weekly, the Capital Press, and CapitalPress.com.
All right, thank you very much. Brought to you by Lennox Home Comfort Systems through our friends at Ramsey Heating and Electric in Burley. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Thank you for waiting.
Yes, good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think the problem, the reason why we're facing so many problems such as this Mr. Sterling's involved in is because enough people aren't taking the time out to get on their congressmen and let these people know that we are paying their salaries.
Mm-hmm. I can't argue with that. I've said it many, many times that the senators and congressmen have lost touch with the reality of their constituents and the value that their constituents have put into hiring them and representing them is not being, I think, compensated in a reverse fashion. In other words, they get back on the Potomac and they're in the good old boys club and they forget about Tony and Zeb.
Well, I got two examples right here of why we're not getting anything done. Regarding the terrorists, here's the answer I got from Mr. Simpson. Thank you for contacting me regarding the Federal Communications Commission. Nothing's been said about the terrorist issue.
Yeah.
Then we got another one here. I want to let you know the Supreme Court is weighing the constitutionality of Obamacare. The important issues we're facing today are being thrown overboard, and we're getting a bunch of baloney coming out from our congressmen in Washington.
You know, Tony, it's a little bit off subject this morning of what I want to stay on, and I do want to stay on free speech. I'm not going to get into this other issue, but I will say this, that form letters are a cop-out. And I honestly believe this, and I dare somebody to prove me wrong, that most of our senators and most of our congressmen have not got a clue as to how devastatingly dangerous Al-Qaeda, the Muslim Brotherhood, and other groups of Islam are in this country. And I have asked some of them that have been on this program, and they've kind of got a vague look on their face, and they go, well, I don't know, but I'll check it out. Well, I don't want them to not know. I want them to be aware, and I think you're 100% right. These stupid form letters show that they're passing it off and not doing their job.
Well, sidestepping the issue of privacy and the loss of privacy and everything else that's going on here. So it all comes down to one thing. People have to get out there and hammer their congressmen whether they like it or not. I
agree. Tony, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Thank you much.
You're welcome.
Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. A few moments ago, Dwayne brought up a very good point, and I want to elaborate on that a little bit. The reverse racism in this country. The reverse racism in this country. Racism in its ugly form is absolutely the most negative thing a human being can do to another human being. And I said this on the air a couple of weeks ago that if I ever, like the Democratic Party did to me 5 years ago, if they ever call me a racist again, I literally, and a lot of people are going, oh, you're advocating violence. I'll find somebody and poke them in the eye. I will not stand to be called that again. And what's happening in this country, though, is the reverse. Take, like, for instance, the bad verbiage of blacks towards whites. And it happened last night with a so-called rapper that I find him disgusting as a human being, with his attitude on sex and his attitude towards women and his attitude towards families, is that Snoop Dogg. They had to bleep out most of what he said regarding whites, and that's okay. That's accepted. The reverse is happening with many, many rappers, many, many black actors. There was an actor not too many months ago that got on television on a talk show, and they asked him about a movie that he was in, and he said, I love my part in the movie because I get to kill whites. The reverse of that, had a white actor said that, you can guarantee his Screen Actors Guild card would have been ripped up and thrown in the trash. His career would have been history. Think about what I'm saying, and you have to acknowledge that I'm right. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Mother's Day's coming up in just a couple of days, and don't forget the Drift In is ready at 545 F Street in Rupert. Oh, it's going to be a special day with prime rib and finger steaks and butterfly shrimp and chicken cordon bleu. Phenomenal. You better make your reservations right now. Call 436-1300. Special Mother's Day hours, 11 to 3 at the Drift in Rupert. Always delicious. How about the Book Plaza? Great gift-giving ideas for Mama's Day. 222 West 11th Street in Burley. Oh, Colonel Dale and the crew, they got all the poem books, and they got Precious Moments, and they've got all the music and the cards and the books. Oh, my mom's going to love you. Stop into the Book Plaza, 222 West 11th Street in Burley. And last but not least, hey, Mom, we'll just give you a big kiss on the chops on this one. The Goodie Shop, 133 West Main in Burley. Oh, your mom can have a goodie basket. You can build your own with ideas that you have, or select one that's already done. Or how about, what a great treat when she's at work, your mom's at work, how about delivering a sandwich and a salad and a veggie and cookies and a drink? Oh, my goodness, what a great idea. From the Goodie Shop, 133 West Main in Burley, 647-0106. Don't chicken out on me. Give me a call. Let me know your thoughts on this. It's a very serious subject. Very serious. I am not, and I reiterate, taking the side of Mr. Sterling. I find what he said to be very, very offensive. I find what he said to be very, very segregative. I find what he said to be very 1860s. I find what he said to be not in the mode of a professional person. But there again, stop the bus, Gus. He supposedly said these things in the privacy of the confinement of his own home. And are we as a society now, and the one caller said it best, we're already being snooped on 24/7, 365 by the NSA. They listen to this program every day. That guy up there in Idaho, why, that right-wing kook, what's the matter with that guy? We got to listen in on what he's saying. They're listening. They're listening. They're following what I'm saying. I know that. And I just want to say good morning to them. I hope their ears don't get sore. But here we go into a slippery, very slippery slope area. We're going to go in, and the NBA is going to destroy this man. The NBA is going to destroy him. They're going to try to take away his ownership of the team. They're going to try to destroy all the sponsorships. They're going to destroy this gentleman called Sterling. Because he was duped into a conversation by a girlfriend that was going to get him in the privacy of his home. And if we open this up, what about your neighbor? What about Aunt Martha? She doesn't like you because you got more money in the will from perhaps the other party that passed away. She's going to nail your hide to the bathroom door. She's going to tape a conversation. She's going to set you up. Oh, we're going to court. Martha's got the tape in the privacy of your home. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? All right, calls are welcome. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. We have been telling you about some great job opportunities at Berry Equipment and Rental, and it's true. They want some really nice, good, absolutely well-qualified mechanics. They're looking for some guys that really know what to do with those wrenches. Well, I'll tell you what, you better give them a call today. You better believe it. You can contact them, get a hold of Eli and Twin or Nick over there in Burley. They're waiting for you. They're looking for some really good mechanics at all three locations, actually, of Berry Equipment and Rental, and Addison Avenue in Twin Falls, and South Lincoln in Jerome, and the new location at 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. Say, hey, they've got all the Coyote tractors. Why, they've got a whole bunch. It looks like a gathering, a convention of Coyote tractors out in front of that store. You stop in, check them out today. What you need to rent or buy, all the equipment's right there at Berry Equipment and Rental in Twin Falls, Jerome, and Burley. Let's get some calls. Come on now, don't hesitate. You've been really good about keeping the calls rolling in here. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Hi, how are you, Lorna?
I'm doing okay.
All right, what can I do for you? All of a sudden, the calls just came rolling in.
Yeah. Okay, back when Nixon resigned, the thing that he did with the taping of things, my gosh, look what it has escalated to now.
Oh, yeah.
Every single president, everybody. And the reverse segregation, discrimination and stuff, that has been going on ever since the 60s.
When you say reverse, are you agreeing with me that it seems like if whites say anything, they're automatically crucified verbally, but the other side, it's just basically not even a slap on the wrist?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, look what they did to Paula Deen.
Yeah.
Something she said 20 years ago. How in the world can anybody be destroyed for some little remark they made 20 years ago?
Well, you see, your point is so well taken right there, because I dare say, and this is not meant to hurt your feelings, but I'll bet you that Lorna said some things maybe in her lifetime that she didn't want people to hear publicly, because I know I, Zabel, have said some things in private that I don't want public. But Lorna, if we let this kind of thing happen to where people literally can in a very, very controversial matter, tape you or somehow get you caught that your verbiage is going to become public without your knowledge, this could be the end of free speech of America.
Anybody can put anything on Facebook.
Yep.
They can do it under their name. They can do it. They can just do it. Anything can go out there.
Yep.
But I don't know. It's just a terrible thing that they're doing.
Well, I think
that is just happening in the public right now.
I honestly think, Lorna, and I got to get these other calls in here, but I think, and give me a quick response on this, I think the NBA, and I think this situation would have been better served to haul Mr. Sterling on the carpet, demand an apology, demand a huge fine, paid possibly to the powers that be with the NAACP or whatever, to show that he is trying to be apologetic for what he said. But I think that when you start taking a man's business away from him and destroying him because of something in the privacy of his home, we've stepped too far.
Well, I thought concerning that the thing that he was telling his girlfriend is to stop bringing in these black people and getting pictures taken with them.
Yeah.
At this show, at the games or whatever.
Well, what he said, What he said, Lorna, was absolutely despicable in a very racist tone, and I will never stand up for what he said. It almost sounded like a slave trader. But there's the caveat. He said them in the privacy of his home, and there's the problem. I got to run and do the weather, Lorna. God bless you, and thanks for your call. Thank you so much. Very nice lady right there. And caller number 2, I'll be right with you. Do not go away. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. If you do, you got to split it with me. Let's have the weather real quick, and it's brought to you this hour by Riverview Urgent Care and Medical Center at 382 North Overland in Burley. Minor emergencies, major care. The doctor will see you now, not in 4 or 5 days. Hey, they're open Monday through Saturday 9 to 9, Sundays 1 to 7. They can help you, and they will at Riverview Urgent Care and Medical Center. Here's Michael Rogers.
Hi, everyone. Michael Rogers for MichaelRogersWeather.com. Gives me a great privilege today for the last 5 years to lie to you every day, although it's not going to be, I have nothing to lie to you about. You got sun and clouds out much of the day for today, and it's going to continue for about the next 12 days. Only our weather story will be it'll get warmer as you keep working your way towards the weekend. 67 for the high for today, and then you're going to start working your way all the way into the 70s as you work your way into the weekend. Enjoy the day, enjoy the weather, it's the only weather you got.
Thank you, Michael. And, of course, talking about the best. Riverview Urgent Care and Medical Center. They really do care. 382 North Overland in Burley, 678-6996. Minor emergencies, major care. Good morning, caller. Thank you for your patience.
Hey, sir. Your last caller mentioned Paula, and I had a little list. Paula and Chick-fil-A, different subjects, but same agenda. Phil Robertson and Clive Bundy. This probably isn't even as much about the people themselves as moving forward the agenda.
You know, you really brought up some good names and different situations that all could be lumped under the umbrella that we're talking about this morning. And I really appreciate that, because there's some of the names you mentioned that I hadn't quite put into the same connotation, but I will now. Thank you for your call, and we'll discuss that a little further. Thank you very much.
Okay, hey, Zip. Bye.
Appreciate that. You know, there is an agenda. And okay, here we go. I'm going to stick my neck out. I wish I had another hour in this segment. I'll call her. I'll be right there, I promise. But, you know, I think there is an agenda to silence people like myself and like this lady just mentioned, Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty. Phil spoke out, honestly, from the heart in regards to Bible passages that are against homosexuality. And his attitude was, love the sinner but hate the sin. And that seems to be denigrated right now today more so than ever before, because people are trying to throw the Bible in the garbage. That's one good analogy from that lady, and I appreciate that. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yesterday, Zeb, in the afternoon when I was listening to Hannity, I noticed he jumped on the bandwagon against Mr. Sterling, which was understandable, but he never ever once brought up the fact that this guy was in his own home, and there is a right to privacy in your home, and what you say in your home is your business.
Let me, Randy, let me jump in here, Randy.
From him, it is wrong. Now, what he did was wrong too, but you're saying the reverse racism is so rampant, but you see, in today's society, you can't say anything in that respect without being hammered, and everybody jumps on the bandwagon. So you just have to go along. See, as long as the influence is that direction, it's a bad precedent, I'll tell you.
Well, here's the deal, Randy, and agree with me or disagree with me. I don't care if people disagree with me. That's a part of a good discussion. But I think the national media right now, the Hannitys, the O'Reillys, the Laura Ingrams, and everything else, they're a little bit more than afraid to make a wave in the water against the liberal left because of the outcry to get them thrown off the air. I'm 66 years old, Randy. I'm going to be as honest can be you on the radio and tell you my thoughts, and I'm not going to worry about hurting somebody's feelings. If I think they're wrong, I'm going to say they're wrong. If I think they're right, I'm going to say they're right. In this particular case, I absolutely think that what Mr. Sterling said was wrong. It was atrocious. It was racist. But he said it in the privacy of his own home.
That's right, and that's exactly the thing. And this, nobody said anything about it. It's so easy to just jump on and keep your ratings up, and it's all about the money. When do we care about the country? When do we care about the people that keep the country alive?
That's right.
The business owners and the hardworking people. When do we care about that?
Absolutely. Randy, I always appreciate it. I got a whole line of phone calls. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Caller, I'm coming. Don't forget, Ramsey Heating and Electric with Lennox Home Comfort Systems. Gas furnaces, air conditioners, heat pumps, all of this for comfort for your home at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
Hey, the thing is, if we got in trouble for every little thing we said in our house, we'd all be in jail.
Right.
Okay. The other thing is that we got in trouble for everything we said in privacy and stuff like that, and it smelled, this world wouldn't be able to stand it. Okay. The thing is they want to give you free speech as long as you say what they want you to say.
That's right.
Not what we want to say. The thing is free speech is going on the way of bye-bye. I think as far as the federal government goes, we are in major trouble, and I don't trust any one of them at all. We need to be pushing our senators and representatives right here in the state to separate ourselves from the federal government as much as possible, because all this is coming to a head, and it's going to come to a head big time. And I'm afraid for our future, I'm afraid for our kids' future and our grandkids' future. And I really do not like that Muslim, in the White House.
Well, Kiltman, you were over at my house a couple of weeks ago with your wife, and we had a very nice visit. Now, think about the same scenario. You were in my house. We talked about various subjects. Well, supposedly, if I didn't like you and I did a tape of you and your wife and my wife and I visiting, and I used that tape against you to hurt you in this community, hurt you at your job, hurt you at your livelihood for the future, my goodness, isn't that the same thing that happened to this man?
That's exactly what happened. The thing is I'm old enough right now that if you don't like what I say, too bad. Get over it or get away from me.
Yeah.
I don't care. I am what I am. I'm raised this way. This is the way I am. If you don't like it, too bad. I'm going to keep going.
Well, the whole thing boils down to this. I have known you for a long time, and I'm not ever going to say that I've ever heard you say anything disrespectful about anyone. But the point is not what you say, but now the point is where you say it in the privacy and the confines of your own home. If we open this up to where that can go to court, and that tape of that verbiage can lose this man and any person their livelihood, their business, and their family, we have opened up a Pandora's box that never will be closed.
Well, that's exactly right. And this is where the court system needs to buckle down, look at these people and say, get over it. It's not worth our time. It's one person. It's one thing that he said. Big deal. Okay? It's one of those things that, people are so offended so easily anymore. They're a bunch of crybabies. And if you don't like it, tough.
Yeah.
It's just too bad. Get over it, get on with your life, and just do what you need to do. If you don't want to be around me, fine. There's other people that do.
All right, Kiltman. God bless you, man. Take care. Stop in and see us. We appreciate it. Thanks.
You too.
Caller, I'll be right with you. I promise. I want to remind everybody, today's the last day of the big spring tire sale. Oh, you don't want to put it off. You want to get into your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers right now. All 7 locations serving you. Service the keyword. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family and Paul, John on Pole Line and Twin, Randy on Overland and Burley. They're chomping on the bit. to serve you with the best in tires. All the different tread designs for your cars, pickups, SUVs, horse trailers, boat trailers, and, of course, the best in brake service. Absolutely. Shocks and struts, front end alignments, batteries. I'm telling you, the list goes on and on. Big spring tire sale today. Today, you better get in there to your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zip.
Yes, sir.
Just my opinion. I think what he should do is sell that basketball team. I mean, the morale on that team is in pretty bad shape now and stuff. So I think he should definitely do that. But I also think he should go after that girlfriend or ex-girlfriend or whatever she is right now, and the people who started this whole thing. I would go after them.
Let me ask you one question quickly. Give me an answer on this. You've mentioned things that I agree with, but there's another problem there. His wife, his real wife, owns half the team. How are you going to force her to sell?
It'd be just like any divorce, I guess. You could just sell your half to her and let her deal with it.
Well, the thing I'm getting at is, though, if they're going to go after this family, they're going to go after him, and they're going to say he can have no connection whatsoever to the Clippers, what's to say if she retains full ownership and he cedes his interest into her for a full possession, that he's still not going to be involved in the mechanics of running the team? I mean, this whole thing stinks when you...
Honestly, I don't think he should have to sell the team. I'm just saying I think he should, just because of the morale, and if she doesn't want to, then that's her problem, and I'm just saying he should, but if he can't, then he shouldn't.
I agree with you. But here we go on that slippery slope again. Somebody makes a comment. You could do it. I could do it. Anybody could do it. Somebody taped that comment, and now we're forcing, in America, a man to sell his assets over a taped illegal conversation. This is a slippery slope.
Yeah, it is. I gotta go. Thanks.
All right, God bless you, man. Thanks.
Bye.
I'm telling you, folks, there's a lot of things to think about here real quick. You've got to think about where we're headed on this. Everybody can stand up and yell racism, and it was. Everybody can stand up and say what a vile human being he is for his comments. He is. But think about the negativity of forcing, coercing, demanding that this man sell his business, get out of the business, go fade away into obscurity, because of comments he made in private. There's the problem. We're going to come back next hour, and I think I'll even ask Doug Johnson about this, even though he doesn't like sports or he's around sports. I think he has to know that when you have racism like this, you've got to talk about it in any connotation, so we'll ask him about that. Then at 9:30, Representative Fred Wood's going to be on the air, and at 10:06, we're going to talk about Agenda 21 and how bad things are getting with the government with Adrian Arp. Don't go away. Oh, good morning, good morning. What a day. If it's like this tomorrow, I'm going to move my studio out on the deck. It's nice outside. Welcome to Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell with your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers as our major sponsor. And then, of course, some of our great advertisers include Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland and Burley, and our friends at Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
Oh, thank you very much. And don't forget to call Western Waste Services. They've added something new to the dimension of serving you, always at your disposal. They've got the Go Minis portable storage units. Oh, my, those are handy, especially like me, with all the saddle stack and everything else. They've got storage units that'll fit for your situation. And don't forget, too, to get on the route service. Get rid of your garbage. It's gone. It's out of there. And they've got all the dumpsters in various sizes. What are you waiting for? They are always at your disposal. Give them a call. today, 734-6969. Western Waste Services, serving you. Hey, by the way, some very dear friends of ours that have been with us on this program for a long, long time, and we really appreciate what they do and their value to the community. Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert with Joel Heward, the manager. Family place. It is a family place because his entire family works to serve you. They're there when you need them. Family attention, and they can also help you by traveling to smaller towns and churches to meet with you. You don't always have to go to them. That's right, 436-5636, a very important number to remember and write down, 436-5636, Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert, serving you and your family. Once again, a quick note here that Idaho Gives campaign is tomorrow. I want you to remind yourself that Idaho Gives campaign, just go to the link, Idaho Gives, and click on the link, and you can navigate right to the page to donate. It's really going to help a lot of people with a lot of charitable organizations tomorrow. Idaho Gives campaign. You check it out, and let's all reach into our pocketbooks and help other people. Also, think about life insurance. A lot of people say, I don't want to think about life insurance. Well, don't put it off on the back burner. Don't put off your coverage on health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits. All of those things are very, very important. And work with the people that really are responsive and dedicated to your needs. Dean Cameron, Todd Siemens, there to serve you at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Number to call, 436-4424. It's Wednesday. That means I get a chance to talk to my old buddy back in Colorado, like Festus used to say. Good morning, Doug Johnson. How are you?
Well, I'm good, Zeb. How are you this morning?
Not bad. The author of the Horse Sense blog and a brand new book. I would be amiss if I didn't give you a chance right now to plug that new book. What is it, Doug? Tell us about it.
That book is called The Leadership Secret, and it helps people understand what you have to have in a person to be a true leader. And so whether a person is leading in their family life, at their church, in their business, or even in politics, it's the things we need to look for when we put people into leadership, the things we need to attain to be leaders. And it's a guideline because Americans have proven that they are not good at choosing people for leadership, as we can see by looking just to any political office in the country. And so it's hopefully a guide that will help people understand what we need to look for, and it's drawn from my 39-year experience in business and what I've learned about leadership.
I would suggest, if you haven't done this already, my dear friend in Colorado, that you sit down and autograph a couple of copies, send them to the White House in care of Barack Obama and John Kerry.
Well, yeah, I've had a number of radio hosts say every politician in Washington should read it, but the fact is that we know that the egos are so great in most of those people that they already think they know everything, so I doubt they'd be very receptive. I think it'd be a waste of paper.
All right. Doug, I want to get into something here with you this morning, and I know that you have said in the past that you're not a sports aficionado. I am, but that's beside the point. We're talking about something much bigger than sports, and we're talking about racism in America. And you'd have to live under a rock to not know what's going on with the Los Angeles Clippers basketball owner and Mr. Sterling. And I made a comment last hour, and I'll stand behind this, that it's a very, very slippery slope, a very dangerous position right now that we have put Mr. Sterling in our society. This was a not known taped interview of him and his verbiage in his privacy of his own home. And to use that verbiage that he said on a privacy of his own home to cause him to lose his business, sell everything, and be fined heavily and absolutely be forced into obscurity, that is a slippery slope that once we cross over this and say, you're damned, we're going to take your home, we're going to stop you from doing business, this could happen to anybody. Doug, it could happen if your neighbor doesn't like you and wants to do the same thing to you.
Well, I'd be happy to give a response. I don't think it's an issue of sports. I agree with you on that. But I think that I have a rather lengthy response, so I hope you allow me to say it, because I felt basically the way you did until last night. And I've been pondering this a lot, and I realized that every single person I'm listening to, even one of the nation's top constitutional legal minds, is missing the point on this whole thing. And so let me just kind of give you my take on that, Zeb. Certainly, Donald Sterling's privacy was violated. It's against California law to record a conversation without all parties consenting to it. But he's not being charged or being affected by the government. This is a private situation. So that issue, if the DA or the Attorney General chooses to pursue it, they could go after the girl who recorded this because she did it illegally. They certainly could do that. Whether they will or not, I don't think it's politically correct, so I don't think they will, but they could. However, he is in a disagreement, I guess we'll use the term, with the NBA, which is a private business relationship. Now, in all my career, I've seen many organizations have morality clauses in contracts and policies. And I would be stunned if the NBA didn't have this in their contract with their team owners that says, if you violate this, we have the right to do the following. And within that, I would think, because I don't think Commissioner Silver is stupid, I'm sure he talked to his attorneys, they probably have the right to say, we will no longer do business with you, so you must sell your team. I'm a little surprised. I'd rather have them say, the Clippers are no longer part of the NBA, but nonetheless, I would suspect that's in the contract. If it's not, Sterling will have one whale of a lawsuit to go to court with. All that said, Zeb, I think the issue goes beyond that, because this is an issue between private parties. And, for example, I know you told me you worked in the insurance industry. I'm not sure doing what. Of course, I worked in management and ran insurance companies. And most insurance companies I've ever dealt with in this country have morality clauses in their contracts with contracted employees and in their standard policies for their other employees. And if you do something in your private life that could affect the image of that company, they have the right to take action against you. And I've taken action against employees for those things. I had one employee who got arrested for drunk driving, resulted in termination of their job, because even though it was on her time, on the weekend, in her private life, when that hit the newspaper, that affected the image of our company, and I had to say, I'm sorry, you're done. So all that said, I agree with you about privacy rights and all that. But what I think everybody's missing is that the NBA is simply saying, we disapprove of your actions, and they have a right to come up with their conclusions whatever way they want. We disapprove of your actions and your words, Mr. Sterling. We're not doing business with you anymore. And it's no different than the baker saying to the gay couple, I don't approve of gay marriage, so I'm not going to make you a cake, or the photographer saying, I'm not going to photograph a gay wedding. It's the same issue of whether a business has the right to say, I will or won't do business with you. And that's what I think a lot of people are missing.
Yeah, but there's another caveat to what you said, and I can't argue with one single point that you made. As a matter of fact, I've mulled this over for the last couple of days with exactly the same points that you just brought out. But you missed, and I don't mean this in a derogatory fashion, but you overlooked a very important cog in this wheel, that his wife, his real wife, owns half the team. And by forcing this issue like they are, you're literally telling her that she has to give up an asset that maybe she doesn't want to turn over.
Well, of course, as I understand it, what I've read, the NBA has not said you have to sell your team. They've just said you cannot partake in the business of it, and you cannot go to the games, you cannot go to the facilities, you cannot have interaction with it. And so I guess it could be set in some kind of a trust, and maybe his wife could even run that. If that were the case, attorneys could make an argument that she has her rights and he has his rights, and that'd be a pretty strong argument. But it does create a tremendous dilemma for the family when families are both owners or co-owners.
That's right.
Or whatever.
That's
in a situation like that. And I think this is where the courts will come in. I don't dispute that at all with you. And this is why I think the NBA would be smarter, in my opinion, as a businessman, to say, we will no longer do business with the LA Clippers. We will allow all their team members, because they're caught in the middle of this, to become free agents. But we will not do business with the franchise because the franchise's owner has violated the agreement. They have the reason they chose the way they go, and I know there's a lot of talk out there that there is a push on for actually this team to be handed over to Magic Johnson and some investors he has behind him to take ownership of the team. How accurate that is or not, I don't know, but I think there's more at play than we're seeing on the surface.
Oh, absolutely.
But, I think that they're going to have a mess to unscramble that is going to take a long time and a big battle to unscramble no matter what happens.
I totally agree with you. You and I basically are on the same page, but there's another caveat here that I want to discuss with you, and a lot of talk show hosts won't go there. As a matter of fact, they'll stick their tail between their legs and run from this issue, and that is the reverse racism that has been prior to this issue and during this issue. I was appalled last night on a newscast where I heard all the bleeped out words from the rapper Snoop Dogg in regards to whites. Now, there you have the reverse. You see, Doug, what I'm saying in our society, racism is alive and well, unfortunately. But it seems like it's more predominant to call whites a racist or hang that label on whites, but yet in the reality of the situation, there are a lot of rappers, there's a lot of actors, there's a lot of people like Snoop Dogg that their vile, filthy language is against whites. And I'll give you one more credible response on this. Remember the actor Jamie Foxx in a movie he was in recently? He was interviewed on The Tonight Show, and they asked him why he liked the part of this movie so well, and he said, because, quote unquote, I get to kill white people. So see, there's the reverse that is never, ever given the attention it needs.
No, and it won't be, because the progressives control our country. They control political correctness and thought in our country. And so in our country today, you cannot be a racist if you are a member of a minority group. You can only be a racist if you're white. That's how the rule works. That's how our own Attorney General believes. And so as a result, we have to understand as whites in our society that we don't have, setting aside the Constitution, which nobody will enforce, we don't have the rights today that we used to have because nobody will take a stand. Nobody will call things what they are, and it's very sad. I had a discussion last night with a friend of mine who is running for Congress, and he told me, he said that it amazes him among the establishment Republicans that they honestly believe that they believe the Democrat talking points about race, about the war. He said one guy who's a major Republican donor, establishment Republican donor, worth a lot of money, just was telling him that he's very concerned about turning around the Republican Party because of their war on women is killing the party. These people believe what the Democrats have sold them. And so this is why our country's in so much trouble, Zeb, and this is why I say, and have said, as you know, for a long time, that if we don't take back Congress this year, it's over. This is our last chance, because we have that and we have a religious freedom argument going through the Supreme Court here this spring. If those two things don't go in our favor, we're in trouble. The Supreme Court just this week turned down the chance to rule on the issue of whether the government can detain citizens without counsel, detain them indefinitely, imprison them, and the Supreme Court said, no, we'll let that stand from the lower courts, which means our rights as free citizens have been taken away, and the military can now come into our homes and arrest us, which has been against the law for 200 years in this country, and now they can do it. We are not seeing our country run the way it's really set up to be, and so we're in real trouble.
Well, okay, let's stop for a minute, because, Doug, I really admire you, and you're a dear friend, and you and I, we have some really good conversations on and off the air. But now let's use what happened the other day with a microphone and a tape that John Kerry was not aware of, our Secretary of State, when he made comments that really were blasphemous against Israel being an apartheid state. Isn't it the same concept? He didn't know that he was taped. He made the comments, and he's basically getting a free pass. Whereas Mr. Sterling, in the privacy of his own home, made comments that were race-related, and he's tentatively going to lose everything he's got. Isn't there a little bit of ambiguity there?
Well, there's certainly, it's hypocrisy run amok. There's no doubt about that. Only thing I'll take issue with is I don't think Mr. Sterling is going to lose everything he has. I think he's a billionaire. Even if he has to sell his team, he'll get the money for the team. He just won't be in the position he's in. But it still destroys his reputation, which he's kind of earned with his own actions. But nonetheless, it was in the privacy of his own home. You should be able to think and say whatever you want in America, whether it's nice or not. He's not harming somebody. He's not saying people should be killed. He's not taking action against people. He is simply saying what he thinks. And in our nation, you should have the right to say and think what you want. And technically, we're supposed to have, but clearly we don't anymore.
Okay, I want to change gears a little bit because I've said for a long time on this program, and I've had people jeer at me saying, oh, come on, get over it. I'm not going to get over it, and I think that right now, this morning, another nail in the coffin against this administration showed up when an email was found that is very, very damning against this administration regarding Benghazi. Are you aware of what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've heard briefly about it. I hear it's the smoking gun. And so I think it's going to be fascinating to watch what happens. But go ahead with what you're going to say or ask.
Well, basically, Doug, what it is, and I'm not going to get down to specifics in the last time remaining here, but this email absolutely will show that, quite frankly, in broad terminology, Obama and his administration were much more concerned about the campaign, much more concerned about the re-election, and less concerned about the reality and the facts as to what happened in Benghazi, and they tried to cover it up. And now with this smoking gun, as you put it, this email, I think a lot is going to be brought to light and show absolutely how heinous this administration was and how they treated this and the death of 4 Americans as if it didn't matter.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think it should be brought out. I think it's going to prove everything that we've all been saying all along that we suspected. But sadly, I'm willing to, and I'm not a gambling man, but I'm willing to wager that the establishment Republicans will not hold this administration accountable, and it won't really go very far. If it's true, it could be grounds for major things all the way to impeachment. But sadly, I don't think we have the spine in the Republican Party to do anything about it.
And you know what? I agree with you. I absolutely think that the way we are in such complete disarray right now on both sides of the aisle, I just don't see any John Wayne sitting in the seat.
Now, let me say this, Zeb. I think there are some conservatives, because there's a handful of them that we've talked about, some good people, both in Congress, a small number of them, and some trying to run for office and take the seats of the establishment people there. They should take this and scream to high heaven about this to the American public and make this a major part of their campaign this fall, to demand that accountability be held and get the American people behind it. This could be a huge push for more conservatives to go into office to start to change government and bring it back to what it's supposed to be. So I think from that standpoint, it could be a positive if the conservatives use it effectively in their campaigns and basically hold both the Democrats and the establishment Republicans accountable for not using it like they should.
Let me ask you a quick question, Doug, and a short answer on this, because I am almost out of time. But you live in Colorado, and we're hearing so much about Colorado in the news lately with, the marijuana problem and the very loose-jointed government and who's going to run, who's going to try to win. What's happening with Colorado government? Is it absolutely turning over to be very liberal left, or are there bright spots there?
It's turning over to the liberal left, there's no doubt about it. Some people feel there's a few bright spots. There really aren't. The Republican Party in Colorado is a disaster. It is controlled by the establishment. We are a microcosm of what's going on in Washington, and it is an absolute disaster. Personally, I believe Colorado is gone, and they won't get it back. It's just, it's in such disarray. And so I think it's a very sad thing. And what scares me, Zeb, is that what they've done here effectively, they're effectively doing in other states, because they've found, especially with immigration, that the immigration issue can drive things, and they're using that now in a lot of the border states to try and push them blue. And I think that's going to hurt the whole country. When you add that to the fact that, and we'll have to probably say this for a different day, that there's great success they're having now in pushing to move to the popular vote and drop the Electoral College, which would mean that yours and my vote mean nothing, because it means only a handful of major states would control the entire presidential process. And so between the efforts they're making to turn states blue and the abandonment of the Electoral College they're pushing for, we're facing some real danger right now.
Absolutely. Doug, once again, tell everybody about your book, how they can get it, and also your Horse Sense blog. Doug Johnson, go ahead quickly, please.
We'll make it real simple. They go to DougJohnsonOnline.com or to HorseSenseBlog.com, either one of them. That'll take you to both my blog. It'll take you to all my books. You can just click on them. It'll take you to sources to buy them at. And the books are also available at your local bookstore. If you just go in and ask for them, if they don't have them, they can get them.
All right, Doug, get yourself out here for lunch. Hurry up. I'll wait for you. Have a great day. Doug Johnson, Colorado. Thank you, my dear friend. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Zeb. I enjoyed it.
All right. God bless. Very nice man. Good friend. Doug Johnson back in Colorado. Excellent author. And he'll be back on again next week on Wednesday. Hey, don't forget Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Now, how many of you, raise your hands, keep one hand on the wheel if you're driving. How many of you have been into Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More? Well, there you go. Well, you better stop back in. Maybe you've just built a brand new home. Maybe you've just renovated your living room and you're sitting there going, that furniture, the old furniture is no good. We got to get some new. I got an idea. You can go down to Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More and get a complete bed or living room set. I mean, with the sofa and the lamps and all the stuff you need for the living room. 14-piece living room set. For just $999.95. Just $999.95. And they can help you pick out exactly what's going to look good and everything. Oh, my goodness sakes, you better stop in today. And they've got all your carpeting, and they've got all the recliners. They've got everything for the beautification and the comfort of your home. At Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley. Really, really nice folks. Hey, I told you earlier this morning that there's going to be a big gathering coming up on Thursday night. I knocked my microphone over almost. Pardon me for that noise. Thursday night, May 8th, coming up next week. It's going to be from 6 to 9, and it's going to be a great big meet and greet hosted by District 27 legislators, Speaker Scott Bedke, Senator Dean Cameron, and Representative Fred Wood. Hey, Fred's going to be on the air with us in just a minute. And, of course, with Governor Butch Otter and Lieutenant Governor Brad Little. All of this at Sweetheart Manor, 217 South Highway 27 in Burley, starting again at 6 o'clock, going till 9, Thursday, May 8th, hors d'oeuvres, refreshments, and a lot of nice people. We'll see you there. Just a minute, we're going to have Representative Fred Wood on our program for this morning. But before we get to him, I also want to remind everybody about Let's Ride. You know, you just got to get outside. You've got to get out and enjoy some of the great outdoors that Southern Idaho has to offer. Well, that means, how about an ATV from Let's Ride? Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley, where the fun is sold. They're open Tuesdays through Saturdays from 9 to 6. Oh, my goodness, they've got the Can-Am side-by-sides, rebates, and great financing. They've got dirt bikes, 0% financing for 5 years. What are you waiting for? And all the accessories. Holy buckets, this is a great place. Let's Ride. Between Rupert and Burley on Highway 24, you stop in and see them today because it is where the fun is sold. Absolutely. Let me catch up on some of my paperwork here real quick. Oh, yes, and also I want to remind you that a lot of you folks are into home comfort and want to check out a gas furnace, an air conditioner, a heat pump with a T. There you go. And you can check out all these with Lennox Home Comfort Systems at Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. You check it out today. Let's go to the phones right now. Gina scares me to death. She'll send me these little texts. Now, she can send me texts and I can read them. That I'm good at. But as far as sending them back, nope, not a chance. She said, simply put, Fred is ready. Well, Fred is ready. Good morning, Representative Fred Wood. You are ready. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Zeb. How are you this morning?
Well, I'm not too bad, and it's so nice to have you on the program. And let's talk a little bit, first of all, about this meet and greet coming up on the 8th, another great big event. You want to tell us a little bit more about it, more so than what I did just a minute ago?
You bet, Zeb. The Speaker and Senator Cameron and I, a couple, 3 months ago, decided that, you know, there's going to be some significant races, and we knew that there would be races at the top of the ticket, specifically for governor and lieutenant governor. And so we decided that we would have a meet and greet and that we would sponsor that. We would sponsor the food, we would sponsor the location, etc. And we want all of the community to come out and have the ability to meet and talk to the governor and the lieutenant governor, the current governor and lieutenant governor, Governor Otter and Lieutenant Governor Little, and all three of us endorse and support them. to let the citizens of Legislative District 27 come out and ask questions and talk to the governor and the lieutenant governor who are running for re-election. I think it's a good event. I think that here's the opportunity for the citizens to come out and meet one-on-one and be able to talk to their highest elected officials in the state.
All righty. Fred, that being said, and everybody plan on being there, it's going to be a nice social evening. I wanted you to come on the program this morning so we could discuss, I guess, basically what's going on in our nation. We're seeing some decadence. We're seeing some falling apart at the seams. We're seeing a lack of morality. We're seeing a lack of caring. We're seeing a lack of right and wrong, and I used Colorado as an example a moment ago in the last segment. My goodness, with the legalization of marijuana, anything goes. And then I saw an interview the other day on television where they went down to a main city park in Denver, and half these kids that they interviewed were stoned out of their minds. They couldn't remember what they did yesterday. Wow. Is that going to be something that we're going to have to worry about here in the state of Idaho?
Well, Zeb, I hope not. And so I'll try not to be too lengthy at all here, because I want to kind of go where you want to go and the listeners want to go. I think with respect to the medical marijuana, you and I talked last week, I think there's a couple of things to remember here. First of all, that, and I got online and tried to do a little research, and I know that specifically with all of the latest cases in these states, now I don't know about every single one, but I think it's important to remember that the legislature did not legalize marijuana. This was all done by citizens' initiative, not by the legislatures. I can't imagine the Idaho legislature going down that road, and I suspect that these other states did it because their legislatures wouldn't go down that road. Secondly, this idea of medical marijuana, in my opinion, is a subterfuge. What they really did is they legalized the use of regular old recreational marijuana under the guise of medicinal purposes. And at least the states that recently have come out and said we're just going to legalize marijuana, at least they have more of a moral argument as opposed to using a subterfuge to get there. Now, whether you want to do that or not, I don't want any part of that. But the long and the short of it is I think it's important to remember, Zep, that the legislatures didn't do that.
Mm-hmm. Fred, what about when you talk about the legality and the use and everything else of marijuana, and other states want to try to follow through, other people in other states want to try to follow through under the same guise as what Colorado's doing? I know I've heard rumblings about Washington and New Jersey and other states. But what do you do in a situation like Colorado, where you've got sports teams, collegiate teams flying in and out, and they go to an area where it is permissible and quote-unquote legal to use it, and they cause problems, they use the marijuana, and I can see this being a very disruptive and creating nothing but a lot of problems in the courts for drivers under the influence, sports teams coming in and using it, and then going back home possibly with some in their pockets. This whole thing is just going to blow bigger and bigger into a problem, I think, isn't it?
Well, yes, I think it is, if in fact the elected officials won't assume their responsibility. Now, at least in Idaho, and I'm not that familiar with the other states with respect to their initiative processes, with respect to the referendum processes, etc. But remember in Idaho that a constitutional amendment, which I'll get to in a minute, can only take place by the citizens voting it in place after 2/3 of the legislature votes to put the question to the people. Mm-hmm. Okay? So if in fact there was a citizens' initiative in the state of Idaho, and it passed to legalize marijuana, I think what you would immediately see is the legislature overturn that citizens' initiative, which in fact can happen. Also, the citizens can overturn by referendum statutes passed by the legislature. So there's a balancing act there, and I think that the legislature, currently composed, would certainly try to weigh any kind of issue like that. And I think you saw that at work when the citizens overruled what the legislature did with respect to the educational bill a couple of years ago. And I think what's happening in these other states is that the elected officials are not assuming their responsibility by saying, wait a minute, do you really know what you did by going down the road of legalizing marijuana, particularly under the auspices of some kind of medicinal properties, etc.? So I think that would come into play in Idaho. Secondly, I'm going to put a plug in here for just how responsible, in my opinion, Idaho is and why it's unique and why I don't think a lot of the things that you see nationwide are going to apply to the state of Idaho. This past legislative session, the most important piece of legislation that came out of that was HJR 2. And Idaho is unique in the states in that the Idaho Supreme Court has upheld in a previous decision, and I believe that's Meade versus Arnell, by a 3-2 vote, that the legislature will be the last arbiter of legislative intent. Now let's look at, and what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at the Nevada situation down there that I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. What you have is Congress passed laws and allowed the executive branch to promulgate rules, and then they never go and review those rules. So the executive branch of government can come back with all kinds of half-baked rules concerning the Interior Department or any other department of the executive branch, and then they're off and running, and they formulate, in effect, their own legislation. Well, what the Idaho legislature decided to do was to enshrine in the Constitution the ability of the Idaho legislature to be the last say on what legislative intent is. So all of this bureaucracy that's run amok in Washington, D.C., and this bureaucracy that's run amok in a bunch of these other states will never be allowed to happen in the state of Idaho, particularly if that constitutional amendment passes. And I think that this is one of the most important constitutional amendments that the state of Idaho has had since I've lived here for 60 some odd years. And I think it's important that it passes. And we'll be talking about that in the future, Zeb. But I have more faith in Idaho and its citizens than I do in a lot of other places in the United States.
I want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to get back into a problem, and it is a problem, and it doesn't seem like it's going to go away, and it's been exacerbated because of the change in the rules all the time, and that's the wolf problem in the state of Idaho. You know, Fred, I know your feelings. You've been on my program many times, and we've talked about it, but there doesn't seem to be an end of the changing of the rules, a changing of a contractual agreement with the environmentalists. They want to always keep digging. They always want to keep changing the numbers. They want to keep enhancing the numbers. They don't want any management. As a legislator in the state of Idaho, you must be ready to tear your hair out trying to deal with these people because they keep changing the rules.
That's exactly why we passed the constitutional amendment that we passed to put to the voters, because in Idaho, if the federal government had the exact same constitutional provision that we're going to pass in Idaho, or hopefully will pass in Idaho, then they wouldn't be allowed to change those rules. But you're exactly right, Zeb. I mean, the changing rules all of the time, not only wolves, but a lot of other things that come out of the federal government. I mean, you don't know where to turn next. You're right. You just stand there and pull your hair out because, I mean, what else are you going to do?
How is the money? And I hate to bring up money and trying to fund things today, especially in our economy the way it is, but how basically is the money going to be derived now for the governor's wolf management plan? I mean, I understand the Cattle Association is going to fund some of it, the sportsmen are going to fund some of it, but where is the bulk of that money going to go for management on these wolves?
Well, with respect to what the governor's wolf depredation plan was, you got to remember now, this is separate and apart from Fish and Game's ability to manage the wolf populations in the normal areas where they can be kept down with normal hunting pressure, etc. What this specific bill did is address those areas of wolf depredation that are affecting livestock, affecting family pets, and affecting game populations in areas where traditional hunting is not going to be able to do that. And just to revisit it, and I haven't looked at that this morning, so forgive me if but I'm pretty sure I'm correct on the numbers. 110,000 is going to come from Fish and Game. 110,000 is going to come from industry. And then what other is needed is going to come out of the general fund, which was, of course, the bone of contention. Mm-hmm. So at this point in time, the plan is, given an appropriate amount of money, that there will be, in addition to the $220,000 from those two entities, several $100,000 more annually, depending upon what we can do with the budget, to control those areas of wolves that are depredating on livestock and game,
right,
and wildlife.
The situation is such, though, that we really don't have any concrete numbers. The numbers change in almost any newspaper story or journalistic viewpoint that you read or hear about. Anywhere from maybe 750 to 1,200 wolves, more or less, when the agreement was for 10 breeding pairs or 100 wolves, and we far exceeded that number, as have the neighboring states. So when you talk about management, it seems like the hunting hasn't done a very good job. What other management tools can we employ?
Well, every single one that you employ, you're going to immediately draw scrutiny and possible court action. I think that as long as you don't try to poison them, and as long as you don't try to unduly affect them with methodologies like poisoning, or too much aerial gunning, and as long as you stick to trapping and hunting, I think you'll be okay. I think that Idaho, in the past couple of years, I think we have a steady state of wolves now. Now, I think there's more than what people say there are, by quite a little bit, quite frankly. But I think a lot of people will agree that at least I think we've stopped that expansion mode.
Mm-hmm. Fred, one of the things I wanted to have you on here, and I've only got a couple of minutes left in this segment, but I wanted you to come on the program this morning for another reason, too. We're looking at May 20th for the primaries, and then, of course, November for the midterm elections. And one of the things that has bothered me for years as an adult voter is that people have so much apathy, more so today than I think in the past. Can you please stress to people how important not only the primary election is, but also leading up into the fall for the midterms, and try to get people off dead center to go vote?
You know, Zeb, this has always been near and dear to my heart, and I know that you've heard me say this. If you go back to the premise of why this country was founded, and you go back to the premise of how many hundreds of thousands of people that have given their lives, young people in the prime of their lives that have given their lives to just for the right to vote, not only in this country, but the wars that we fought in other countries, just or unjust. I'm not going to go into that. And then you're too busy to go vote or whatever. If you don't go vote, you absolutely cannot complain about the government that you get. It's as simple as that. You have no right to complain. And I would love nothing better than to see 100% of the eligible voters turn out to vote in both the primary and the general election. And I can tell you, you and I both know that both in the governor's race, the lieutenant governor's race, the second CD race, and superintendent of public instruction, etc., there are multiple political views, but two dominant political views at play here. And so if you don't come out and vote, then you don't have any right to complain about the government that you're going to get. I can't stress that enough.
Absolutely. Representative Fred Wood, I'm going to turn the tables on you a little bit to go ahead, and if you have any subject matter that you'd like to present or something that's very pertinent from our audience, we've got about 2 minutes left in this segment. So anything else you want to discuss this morning, the floor is yours.
Zeb, there is a couple of things. First of all, I would encourage everybody to get out and vote. And I don't care if I have to try and shame you into getting out and voting or implore you to get out and vote or whatever. But I think the most important mission that anybody can have between now and May the 20th is to educate yourself on what is required where to vote. You have to have photo ID, etc. Secondly, where do you go vote? And familiarize yourself with the people that are running for elected office so that you can make an informed decision about voting. Secondly, Zeb, I'd love to come on the program in the coming months and talk about the constitutional amendment because I think that is the single most important piece of legislation that's come before the legislature in the past several years. And I think everybody needs to become familiar with that constitutional amendment and exactly what it means for the future of the state of Idaho and all of the mischief that it can prevent in future legislatures and future legislation if, in fact, we pass that constitutional amendment.
We will have you.
That's what I would encourage the citizens who are listening to do. And with that, Zeb, I appreciate you having me on very much.
Well, we've got one quick call. We'll take that quick caller, and then we'll wrap it up. Caller, quickly, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, Fred, in recent days there's been judges, activist judges, throwing these voter ID laws out in various states. I know in the last week or two has been at least 2, if not more. And, here we're required to have an ID, and I just cannot believe that anybody else would not agree with that. I'll hang it up.
All right. Would you respond, please, Fred?
Well, if you want to argue with somebody, you're going to have to call somebody else, because I would agree. I cannot imagine any kind of a system whereby you didn't have to prove who you were to vote. That just doesn't make sense to me. That stops a lot of voter fraud, etc. So I would agree with the caller that I'm not sure what's going on in those other states, but we have it here, so make sure you do show up with it, and I hope we keep it.
Absolutely. Representative Fred Wood, always amenable to coming on this program. Thank you, Fred. God's blessings, and I'll have you back on in a couple of weeks, and we'll discuss that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Zeb. Talk to you later.
Thank you, sir. Just one of the nice gentlemen representing our state, Representative Fred Wood. Thank you for being on the program here this morning. Holy cow, I got to catch up. I forgot. We got the weather forecast we've got to get in here, and it's brought to everybody this hour by Red's Trading Post at 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. All the guns, all the ammo, all the accessories, plus the fact that they've got trained personnel over there at Red's Trading Post that can really help you. Don't forget, stop in Red's Trading Post in Twin. Here now, Michael Rogers Weather.
Hi, everyone. Michael Rogers for MichaelRogersWeather.com. Gives me a great privilege today for the last 5 years to lie to you every day, although it's not going to be, I have nothing to lie to you about. You got sun and clouds out much of the day for today, and it's going to continue for about the next 12 days. Only our weather story will be it'll get warmer as you keep working your way towards the weekend. 67 for the high for today, and then you're going to start working your way all the way into the 70s as you work your way into the weekend. Enjoy the day, enjoy the weather, it's the only weather you got.
Thank you very much, Michael Rogers Weather, brought to you by Red's Trading Post. And don't forget, purchase a firearm from Red's Trading Post and receive training bucks for both LMS Defense and Shaw Shooting, two wonderful organizations teaching you how to use their rifle and pistol training courses. You better believe it. Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls, 733-3546. Oh, my goodness, in just a little bit, as he wanders into the studio, we're going to have Dr. Adrian Arp on our program talking about Agenda 21 next hour, so don't miss that. And then also, want to remind you, too, that I've had quite a few calls. People are asking about, what did you say about Riverview Urgent Care and Medical Center? And I said it's at 382 North Overland in Burley. Minor emergencies, major care. They treat everything from sinus infections, headaches, breaks, brains, strains, all kinds of cuts and rashes and sore throats, everyday illnesses they can treat right there at Riverview Urgent Care and Medical Center. And they have three main goals: getting you feeling better quick, along with saving you time and money. Really nice people. Minor emergencies, major care. Riverview Urgent Care and Medical Center, 382 North Overland in Burley, 678-6996. Really good folks. Holy cow, we haven't had one single moment to talk to the lovely Gina Jameson. How are you this morning, my dear?
I am doing well. I am hungry.
So what else is new in your world?
This is true. Hey, I did want to let you know that Scotty is going to be running the last half of your show from about 10:30 to 11, so I can go to Kennedy School because they're having a Moving On Up Day where they get to meet everybody in the second grade.
Oh, my goodness. Is he in second grade already?
No, he's in first grade getting ready to go into second.
Oh, I see. So he's going to get all the information, and he's going to meet the people, and Mom's going to be there, and it's going to be smiley, smiley, smiley.
Yes, it's going to be a good time. So I just wanted to let you know that Scotty's going to be running the show from about 10:30 to 11.
You want to hear something before you leave about education that'll just make you just absolutely want to just take your fingers and run them down a chalkboard?
What's that?
Listen to this, and this shows you no common sense whatsoever. In Minnesota, there was a girl that's an honor student at Minnesota High School, and she accidentally went to school one morning 2 weeks ago with a very, very small pocket knife in her purse. The night before, as she does many, many nights, she works on the farm with her boyfriend and her dad. And she left the pocket knife in her purse. They had a general search one morning. They found the knife in her purse. She has been expelled from school, can't go to prom, can't graduate. Her college career is in jeopardy, all over a mistake that she readily admitted. It was a mistake. She forgot to take it out of her purse, and they've expelled her.
Wow. That's dumb.
You want to hear what else goes on in this story?
What else goes on?
Another student, that same day when they did a locker check, was found to have a lighter in his locker. But, Gina, he happens to be the son of a school board member, and he got basically suspension for 3 days.
You're kidding.
I don't kid about things like this.
Special treatment. He got special treatment while the other child did not.
Yeah, and the girl's an honor student, had a complete litany of schools that wanted her to attend, major colleges, and she gets expelled from school, can't go to the prom, can't do anything, because of a little pocket knife with less than a 2-inch blade in her purse to cut open hay bales on the family farm. But the other kid has a lighter, and he gets a 3-day suspension.
Preferential treatment.
Wouldn't you say? Isn't that something, though? And what about common sense? What about common sense? Here you've got a girl that's an honor roll student and one of the epitomes of the school and one of the people that all the other students look up to, and they throw her out of school?
That's nuts. I think that they should let her stay.
I do, too. Dr. Adrian Arp's going to be here next hour, and we're going to be talking about Agenda 21. And really, you need to pay attention to what he's going to say, because we're going to be talking about how insidious and how it's getting involved in every aspect of our life. And what was 10 years ago kind of rumor and innuendo and now coming true. And we're going to be talking to Dr. Arp about that this next hour. So leave the dial right here. Zeb at the Ranch on a Wednesday. And Adrian, how's the weather outside? Nice? Great weather, he said. It's fantabulous. So we're going to tell you more about that in just a little bit. Quickly, a couple of notes here. I want to get this one in real fast. My goodness, the Relay for Life yard sale, sponsored by the Rupert United Methodist Church for the American Cancer Society, is going to be held this Saturday, May 3rd, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the church over in Rupert. And don't forget, too, once again, that the Veterans Motorcycle Ride is proud to have the second annual Veterans Ride this weekend, May 3rd. The ride begins at Duck Uglies on Highway 30. Registration $15 at 11, and the ride starts at 12 p.m. Going to be really neat with the proceeds donated to the Rupert POW MIA Scholarship Fund. Got to run. Be back in 6. I'll see you then. Oh my, here we go. Hour number 3. Zeb at the Ranch on a Wednesday, and everybody that's coming in the door is saying, get outside. It's beautiful. Very nice day. Zeb at the Ranch brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations, along with some of our great advertisers, including Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley, and, of course, our friends at Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Call them at 734-6969. Before I introduce our guest, I want to tell you about the Chadwick Sports Grill. What a great place to go eat. You want to know what the special is today? You're going to love this. Sweet and sour meatballs over steamed rice with super salad, just $8.95, and the senior citizen price, just $5.95. What are you waiting for? Load the car up, get on down to 139 West Main in Burley. The Chadwick Sports Grill, the greatest of food, the menu fantastic, service, oh my goodness, you're going to love it. The Chadwick at 139 West Main in Burley. I have a friend on the program, and I think we've known each other since, we didn't have gray hair when we met, I don't think. How are you? Adrian Arp, Dr. Adrian Arp. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Very nice to have you on the program. Adrian, of all the times that we've had you on the show, we've discussed things from the United Nations, we've talked about things that are going on with gun control, we've talked about things regarding agriculture, and one of the big topics that we always seem to segue back to, is 2 words, Agenda 21. And you were one of the very first people that alerted me to Agenda 21 with books and maps and everything about 10, 15 years ago. And I've said this before on the program, it's probably old hat, but we do have new listeners, so we want people to be cognizant. At first, when you explained Agenda 21 to me and how it could be so devastating to the American way of life, I kind of scoffed at it and thought, oh, it'll never happen here. Why, this guy's a crackpot. Well, I want to tell you again that you have been right on everything with Agenda 21. And unfortunately, through the Obama administration, we have seen many and most of the warnings of Agenda 21 start to come to fruition. I'll let you pick it up from there.
Well, Agenda 21, give the brief overview, and the bottom line is that Agenda 21 wants to control everybody, the United Nations, and Agenda 21 wants to control everybody and everything on the planet. And that's really the bottom line. And so they're going to use global warming, endangered species, et cetera, or the war on coal, on our energy. Basically, it's going to it's a leveling. It's a redistributing the wealth. And it's control. Those are the two big key words, or three words there. Redistributing the wealth. We're too rich, so we've got to be brought down to third world status. And how do you do that? You bring our economy down. And anybody that says that our economy is going anywhere, they got to be in dreamland. I mean, we live really here in kind of because of the agriculture here and people want to eat, we probably do better here than the ag people have actually done fairly well. But there's so many rules. Look at the price that we're paying. There was just a dust explosion someplace down La Habra.
Yeah.
One of my company headquarters in La Habra, so I haven't heard any details in the paper this morning. And the EPA and OSHA, they've got all of these rules about no dust. Well, you collect dust and pretty soon you get a spontaneous combustion, and they had several people injured, ruined the business down there. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Look at the energy costs. When I came here, $23.9 was the price of gas in 1971 at Maverick in Twin Falls.
Yeah.
I drove by it 4 times a day going to work. And I'm telling you folks, now we're paying, it went up 20 cents just
overnight.
Yeah. Last week before time I left and so forth. But here's what's going on. If you get nothing else out of this program, is that we've got to get out of the United Nations. It's not world tax, it's world courts, it's gun control, control of our seas, control of our water. It's all coming down the United Nations through our Department of State and to the EPA. They're implementing all these rules, and they're doing it without Congress's permission.
Let me interrupt you there, and I think it's a good highlight at this point. Recently, and I say recently within the last couple of years, we have seen, even locally, a big shift in some of the media, i.e. like the Times News with their editorial staff and everything, basically scoffing at people like you and I that condemn and bemoan the fact that we're being pushed upon by global warming and other factions with the United Nations. Let's talk about global warming just for a second. When I read these op-ed pieces in our local Times News, which should be a basically supporter of agriculture and things that happen here in the state, and they basically tell people in their editorials that people are idiots if they don't believe in global warming. Well, then I'm going to consider myself an idiot, because the temperature of the earth has not gone up or changed in the last 17 years.
It's gone down.
It's exactly where I'm headed. As a matter of fact, it's gone down, and there is a major push by many climatologists and meteorologists that are really warning that if we adopted the principles of global warming and we go into a cooler, what they call even a mini ice age, we are really going to be in trouble. Now, here's where you, a doctor of agronomy, can come in and say the benefits of what really global warming would be if it was going to warm. It's better for the crops. It's better for food production, everything. You can't grow crops in cold weather.
Well, it was 27 degrees this morning in Rexburg. We had frost the previous 2 mornings here, and I'm sure there was some sugar beet damage around in southern Idaho. Maybe not so much right here locally, but eastern Idaho got colder than we did, and so I don't know how much damage. They got hammered last year. Well over half the sugar beets had to be replanted at $150 an acre just for the seed.
Wow.
So, you see all of these things coming to fruition under these, there's the global warming proponents are claiming that by warming the planet, it's more harmful to grow food and so forth. I can guarantee you the Vikings were the greatest real estate sales. They called Greenland, it's basically ice, and they call it green because they had a warming period during that medieval warm period. And they went in there and they got people to settle in there. And then when it got cold again, back to where I would call normal. There is no such thing as normal. It's like an oscilloscope in science. You got these highs and lows.
That's right.
And so, unfortunately, we have during the Revolutionary War, we had a big low in there, and you think it was cold now. I mean, during the Valley Forge, it must have been unbelievably brutally cold. But talk to anybody in the Midwest how the global warming's working out for them this year.
Absolutely. And I'm from Wisconsin
And
originally.
I talked to a guy from Wisconsin last week at this meeting I was at.
You know, there was something that came across my desk this morning that I wanted to ask you about and have you respond to. And I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but just to show you what the Democrats are doing, and they seem to be leading the charge, Washington Governor Jay Inslee has imposed cap and trade through executive order for his state. And he said he's going to eliminate coal power and fund green energy projects in the state of Washington, and he doesn't care what you or I or anybody else thinks. And he expects electricity rates, possibly, with the change going to green energy, we might be seeing up in the state of Washington, the evergreen state, possibly going up maybe 200%.
Well, and it's happening here. I mean, we went up, I think the rate for this summer, fortunately, I think because we had this late snowpack, was doomed to go way up, but unfortunately now we got excess water, at least coming down the Snake River as far as power generation. The Salmon Track in Hawaii County is a whole different deal. It's very spotty, but here's the bottom line. CO2 is not a pollutant.
There you go. I want you to emphasize this very strongly to the people that are so absolutely absurd and they're thinking that CO2 is a bad thing.
I mean, reports, there's over almost 300, I'm sure there's close to 300 now, reports of the benefits of the excess CO2 we have. Even on one of the TV shows, Good Morning America, I believe it was here a couple of months ago, they had a guy from Auburn University, and they kind of let it sneak out, this stuff, you know, they don't think about it. And he said, well, the forests are going faster because we got extra CO2. What's it doing for corn and cotton and peanuts in the South?
Amen.
And sugar beets and potatoes in Idaho. You know, so all this nonsense about CO2 being a pollutant is just, it's only 400 parts per million, which if you take the zeros off, that's 4 parts in 10,000. If we doubled it, okay, the level where humans it becomes a toxic level is 100 times what we are now.
Oh my!
So we're only 1% of that level, and the Earth had much higher CO2. And where is most of the CO2 coming from anyway? Volcanoes. All that we do out here running around in driving and agriculture and industry is peanuts. When one of these volcanoes blow off almost every day, they put most of the CO2 and the pollutants and the toxic gases that come into the atmosphere come from volcanoes.
How does the public, how are they perceiving this nonsense from these the sky is falling, climate control people like Al Gore, etc.? Why are they buying into this without taking it upon themselves to do a little study and research on their own and a little bit of high school science and understand CO2 and other things instead of just buying into this, oh my goodness, we're all going to die, climate change?
Well, it's a religion. It's a religion. It's Gaia. It's Mother Earth. It's all about a religion. And it's about, again, bringing this country down to third world status so that we can merge in comfortably under United Nations. And everything that goes on. I just got a letter, an issue here from Tom DeWeese with the DeWeese report from the American Policy Center.
Right.
It came in the mail. Anyway, he said that here's the things about Agenda 21. It's not only global warming, but they got this fear of overpopulation, and there's this drive that we're going to only have 500 million people on the entire planet. That's Ted Turner and Company. And another thing, let me just quote some of this stuff. Here's Timothy Worth. He's the president of the UN Foundation. So this comes from the top, from the UN. He was a former congressman from the state of Colorado. You can give Frosty a bad time about that one. We've got to ride this global warming issue. Even if the theory of global warming is wrong, and it's only a theory, we'll be doing the right things in terms of economic environmental policy, quote.
Oh my.
That's it. And he's a UN guy, see? Okay, and here's co-founder of Greenpeace. It doesn't matter what is true. It only matters what people believe is true. And so this is the problem. We have this national media. There's a few people like yourself and those of us who write a few letters to the editor and so forth. We understand in the real scientific community, over 31,000 U.S. scientists, over 9,000 PhDs are against man-caused global warming in this country alone.
Let me ask you a question, Adrian, and you've been very good in the past at being on this program and explaining scenarios to people. But here we are in 2014, and we're seeing fuel prices escalate. We're seeing a president that is anti-coal and wants to absolutely see the grid taken off coal, wants us to basically only go to wind and solar. But how? How are we going to do this and maintain a lifestyle of trying to get to our jobs, farmers trying to run those John Deeres down the field, trying to harvest the crops, trying to run an ambulance late at night to get a mother to the hospital to have her child? How are we going to meet the energy requirements this country and our civilized society needs?
You can't. Right now we're getting maybe 3% at the outmost from wind and solar.
3%.
3%.
Or less.
Outmost.
Yeah.
And then, the wind doesn't blow over today, although I'm beginning to wonder here recently around here. But all of these green energy projects are not sustainable. They talk, this is the hypocrisy they keep saying about sustainability. That is a big joke, because the amount of resources that goes into even ethanol, that goes into constructing these big windmill towers and the energy, the payback, it doesn't pay. Solar doesn't pay either, unless there's our tax money subsidizing it. You take away the subsidies, all of that stuff disappears. So we're subsidizing through our taxes, at least right now. I think the figure is $22 billion a year. That's, like we've got that kind of money to just waste, because that's what it is. And so all of this green stuff is just a matter of they're promoting it. It's a religion. It's a way to divert us from real resources like developing the oil and the coal, nuclear power. My gosh, we wouldn't even need a coal-fired generator if we went to nuclear power.
Well, let me ask you this. Aren't the environmentalists basically liars, frauds, and charlatans? Because here on the one hand, they want the pristity of the world before humans. But then on the other hand, they're welcoming in these absolute messes of twisted steel with solar panels and these idiotic towers of wind turbines. Aren't they really being frauds and charlatans by saying on one hand they want pristity and on the other hand they're welcoming in this mess?
Well, sure, and look, here's the hypocrisy too. You got they're all for these endangered species. If you and I go out and happen to shoot a bald eagle, just accidentally, or I had a friend that was out playing golf and teed off and hit a protected species. That thing came down like a rock, and boy, it caused a big stir. They understood what happened. It was an accident, but they made a big thing about it for a little while. Well, so this all about redistributing the wealth. Issue number 3 is the goal of Agenda 21 is destruction of the free market system. Okay, you see what's happening. We're importing so much stuff, and like I say, I just got a new a printer. He took it out of the box, had a computer expert friend help me hook it up and do some other things, and the USB port is non-functional, so we had to go remote. This is out of the box. This is the garbage that we're getting and so forth, but it's all about redistributing the wealth is behind every policy that comes out of the UN. And now the Obama administration is using the EPA with its war on coal, war on energy in general. They're not allowing government drilling and so forth on government land. They've cut off the offshore drilling. And so we see this, we could tell the Middle East to just go, stick it where the sun doesn't shine. But no, we're going to do that. We're going to pay this policy.
I had to laugh watching O'Reilly a couple of weeks ago. And Bill O'Reilly is not, in my opinion, the very brightest bulb in the picture.
He has no clue on this agenda.
Yeah, absolutely not. I agree with you. But he made a comment about how he wishes that everybody had electric cars. And I sat there and I thought, O'Reilly, you idiot. Here you just previously had a story on the war on coal and the cutback cutback on electricity, and then you make a idiotic statement like you wished everybody had electric cars.
Like,
pray tell, where are you going to plug that doggone thing in?
Yeah, I mean, does it just, plug it into the...
Speaking of that, though, Adrian, and this is something that I want you to elaborate on. People do not understand the electrical grids and the power necessary. And with the cutbacks on coal, with the war on coal, and the war on fossil fuels, we are not going to be able to generate any kind of a lifestyle like we're used to with solar and wind.
We're going to start seeing, in fact, if it hadn't been for that new gas-powered unit up there, a guy from Idaho Power told me we would have had brownouts and blackouts in Idaho. That was the 2nd of July when it hit 110 degrees up there. Yeah. They had that gas-powered deal out there at Kuna is a backup. They have to have that backup there because the wind, they have to take the wind when it's available, but when the wind wasn't blowing that day, they maxed out. Idaho Power maxed out. It was a record-breaking amount of... There was little over 1% of the power that day came from wind in the Idaho grid. 1%. 1%. And so basically it was nothing. I mean, 1%. 46 megawatts out of almost 4,000. So,
but when you look at the grid worldwide, nationwide, and what has to be done to keep things going and to keep a progressive society and the biggest society in the world with the people going helter and skelter to their jobs and the Avon lady trying to make her appointments and everything else, where are we going to get the energy from? I mean, absolutely, it's ridiculous to think that we can go off fossil fuels.
Well, like I said, as far as our electrical capacity, if you didn't take away that big nuclear power grid down there in Arizona that feeds Los Angeles. Of course, California don't want anything in their backyard. So, Arizona, if the governor got mad and said, hey, we're not going to give you any power, I mean, Los Angeles would be in the dark right now. And it's all because of nuclear power. They're now proposing, and this is probably won't happen, but small nuclear power units, regional, instead of having these huge ones where you use the large transmission lines and all of that, then what you need to do is just have small controlled nuclear power plants, and we have the technology. It's all been developed right here in Idaho, basically, and we're not using it. So we have all this energy available, and yet we have all these regulations, which gets me to the point. We got the Obama administration making law. We have the Supreme Court making law. Get the Constitution out, Zeb. You've got one there. Read Article 1, Section 1, Clause 1. What does it read? I'll have you read it and what it says.
Trying to find it, Article 1, Section 1.
Yeah, the very first.
Okay, here we go. Article 1, Section 1, and it says... all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives.
That's it, right? Okay. Yeah. What's the first word?
All.
Okay. If all is, 100%?
Yep.
Okay, how much power does that give to the president? How much does that give to the Supreme Court?
It says all powers.
So they got 0.
That's right.
Okay, so all of this stuff that's coming through the EPA, which wasn't even created by an act of Congress, is unconstitutional.
Stop right there. I've got a hard break, but you got to answer this. Why have we as a public been duped into thinking that the EPA is the one-all catch-all and basically held on a pedestal as savior of the world?
Well, that's just it. It's the environmental... When it was created in 1970, it was set up with the idea that it would do exactly what it is. William Ruskell's the first administrator, came from the World Wildlife Fund. They fund most all of the Sierra Club and all of these environmental groups. They're bringing on the wolves, the grizzlies, controlling our land, and so forth.
I've got to do a commercial break, and then calls are welcome for Dr. Adrian Arp on the program this morning, and he's telling it like it is with Agenda 21. It's true, folks, and it's coming to fruition every day. Don't forget, tomorrow on the program, Vicky's Country Gardens, Gardening for Idiots, program named after me. 185 South, 600 West DePaul. Don't forget, Vicky's Country Gardens. Oh, my goodness, she's got all your flowers over there, pansies and petunias, ready to go along with certain vegetables right now. And don't forget, too, that she can help you with a lot of great gift-giving ideas for Mother's Day. Special baskets for Mom. Right there at Vicky's Country Garden, 185 South, 600 West of Paul. The number to call, 438-5663. Oh, and don't forget, to our friends with Lennox Home Comfort Systems, air conditioners, gas furnaces, heat pumps, all of this and more, through our friends at Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. We are going to take a little break, send it back over to our main studios in Rupert, and we'll be back with more Dr. Adrian Arp in just a few minutes. Don't you go away.
And now back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb.
Welcome back. Hour number 3 1/2. As we get ready to go, I want to wish everybody a happy Mother's Day. Burley Glass wishes moms happy Mother's Day, and they're telling everybody at 1029 Overland in Burley, springtime's the right time to think about new windows and get rid of those old, drafty, chilly windows that are letting all the heat in or the heat out. Whatever the case, you want to make sure you've got windows that are really going to do the job for you. And consider installing vinyl windows with Burley Glass. Gentle Ben and the crew can get you a bid today at 1029 Overland in Burley, 678-1459. And K&R Rental. Don't forget, 256 South, 600 West of Hayburn, 678-3112. Hey, it's springtime. Everybody's outside, and they've got all the tools you need to get your property in shape for summer. All the best of service prices and quality parts right there at K&R Rental, located 1 mile north of exit 208 on the Burley-Paul Highway. K&R Rental. Thank you and happy Mother's Day. Once again, a reminder, coming up on next week, May 8th, Thursday night, 6 o'clock till 9 o'clock, you're invited to a meet and greet hosted by District 27 legislators, Speaker Scott Bedke, Senator Dean Cameron, Representative Fred Wood, and, of course, Governor Butch Otter is going to be there with Lieutenant Governor Brad Little. All of this at Sweetheart Manor, 217 South Highway 27 in Burley, Thursday night, May 8th from 6 to 9. We will see you there. We are on the phone with a very, very dear friend of mine here in the studio, and that's Dr. Adrian Arp. Adrian, I want you to go back in and kind of give us a wrap-up on your thoughts and concerns about Agenda 21.
Well, there was 3 other points. We talked about 3 of them, but there's, the environmentalist says that cheap energy is the enemy of the earth. I mean, of course, that's what made this country great, is
Absolutely.
Cheap energy. So, I mean, that's a total lie. And it says here, remember Professor Paul Ehrlich? He was the one that wrote the population bomb. Giving society cheap, abundant energy is the worst thing that could ever happen to the planet. And so forth. Another issue is Common Core. The Agenda 21 is coming right into the schools, is being promoted. This green global citizen stuff is right in the curriculum, Common Core. Folks, wake up, smell the coffee and the roses, because Common Core needs to go. And I'm sorry, but our leadership in this state dropped the ball on this one. They were led down the primrose path, and it's over a slippery slope, and our kids are being fed this propaganda, and that's what it is, that Common Core is bringing all this stuff into the schools to make them believe that we have, we're using too much energy and all this kind of stuff. We can't conserve ourselves into prosperity. You can't grow a society. We can't have agriculture by downsizing everything, so we're back to doing everything with a rototiller out in the field. Okay?
If you can get the gas to run the rototiller.
Get gas for it.
Yeah.
And like I say, so Common Core is a bad deal situation, and these curriculum, today the new curriculum is morphed into what is called Common Core. It is a state-run central curriculum that revamped schools into little more than job training and indoctrination centers. That's what Common Core is all about.
I need you to speak directly into that mic, Adrian.
And the last one is health care.
Right.
And health care, how's that connected to Agenda 21, Obamacare, Simply go sustainable medicine. Here's the bottom line. Is the part of Agenda 21 out of Rio de Janeiro, principle number 1, All humans must live in harmony with nature. It means rationing healthcare, low technology for healthcare treatment, and emphasis on medical care, not cure.
That's right.
I mean, so this is all part of Agenda 21, folks. And like I said, we got to get us out of the UN. H.R. 75. That's the bill that's before Congress right now, and we need to hammer on these congressmen wherever you're at.
All right, put your headsets on. We got a caller with a question. Good morning, caller. Go ahead, please.
Well, let me say first, I agree. Let's get us out of the United Nations. I do have a comment about nuclear power and a bit of a concern. We saw what happened over in Fukushima in Japan. And if we were to have something similar to that happen here, it could cause us an awful lot of environmental problems. Now, my concern is if the electrical grid goes off, I know they have diesel power as a backup to run those generators to supply the water it needs to keep the nuclear reactor cool. But usually that only lasts for a couple of weeks. What are we going to do if we get an EMP attack that destroys our electrical grid, that destroys most moving equipment? Those nuclear power plants are going to melt down, aren't they?
I'll let Adrian answer that on the phone. It's an excellent question. Adrian, how would you respond to that as far as the negativity of what happens to the electrical grid in case of a meltdown on the nuclear power?
Well, the meltdown, of course, that's been way overemphasized, and people don't realize that nuclear power is the safest other than hydropower as far as generating power. When you look at the overall situation, we've been led to believe that nuclear power every nuclear power plant is an atomic bomb waiting to blow up, and it's just totally a lie.
Well, stop right there, though. What about the gentleman's concerns? And there are real concerns from a lot of people about what happened in Fukushima could happen here.
Well, again, that was the backup systems there worked. What they hadn't anticipated was a 40-foot wall of water coming onto the deal.
That's true.
I mean, that was in a very extreme situation, and of course, let me reiterate, everybody remembers in recent times about 3 Mile Island. Nobody was injured there. The amount of radiation released, nobody received. It was just totally blown out of sight and overblown. But these anti-energy people we haven't had any new refineries, new nuclear power plants, and it is safe. And people just don't realize. And unfortunately, because of the Carter administration, they took the high-level waste and they called it waste. And they had the breeders' reactors, which the Carter administration stopped. They were using all this high-energy so-called waste and using it. But it's all about bringing this country down and the technology. I've studied this country. This state has the world's class scientists and research, and I know everybody's out there just fearful of a meltdown, but that situation was extremely graphic, unfortunately, because of the tidal wave that went in there. Tsunami.
How concerned are you about another aspect of a meltdown of our electrical grid, and that's through the use of computers and the hacking of computer experts possibly to shut down our grid? That's another concern right now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, as far as the grid, here's the problem. We've allowed the grid all to be interconnected. We used to be, have segments. Well, thanks to government regulators and so forth, what happens over here happens over there, so we're all tied together. And we never used to have, and that's again a case of too much government interfering with a local situation, and we need to take back our state's rights and all these things.
People, I don't think, realize how close we are to a energy meltdown of not having enough energy to run the toaster or the blender or keep the refrigerator going and keep the food cold. I really don't realize, I don't think they realize how close we are to devastation with the backing off of the use of whether it's coal or whether it's fossil fuels. You can't run it on the programs that they have implemented now or trying to implement with green energy. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, green energy is not going to get the done. And like I say, go back to what I started. It's all part of Agenda 21 comes from the United Nations of 1993. So they had a big deal last spring down in Rio de Janeiro and come out with, and of course the media is pushing this thing. We're so close to chaos in this country as far as energy, but you can see what happens. If the grid goes down one place, it can affect everybody else now.
You wanted to get into a phrase called neocons, I want to make sure that everybody understands what it means, so go ahead and explain that.
Okay, well, the history, many of you heard of Irving Kristol. Irving Kristol was considered the father of modern neoconism, and that basically the neocons originally were disenfranchised with the radical left, the George McGovern types that had taken over the leadership of the Democratic Party, so they wanted to find a new home. So they decided, here's a good place we can go, and we can park in the Republican Party and bring about some of the same things that we would like to accomplish. The reason the Tea Party people are attacked so much is because the neocons that basically are the Republican establishment leadership, and I'm sure people's ears are perking up out there now, but you see the Republican, they're not against amnesty. There were all these preemptive wars. Those are unconstitutional. They haven't really taken a stand on against these agencies by slapping them on the wrist and really taking them on, the unconstitutionality of it. And so they basically aren't against increasing the national debt. And we see leaders of the Republican Party pushing that agenda. And Boehner's already come out and said by August he wants to have amnesty passed. And, of course, Frosty Woolridge, it's been on this program week after week, has said we will have 30 million new illegals in addition to the ones that are already in here.
That's right.
Within 10 years, folks. It'll totally destroy this country. You think we're going to be down to a third world status? We're having all kinds of problems already. Can you imagine what that's going to do? But that's a neocon agenda. Why are we over there in Afghanistan? Have we accomplished anything in Iraq? Nothing, except getting a lot of people killed and shot up. Have we accomplished anything in Afghanistan? No, nothing. Same deal there. We got security guards killing our doctors and nurses. Folks, it's time to get out of there.
Yeah.
Ron Paul warned about all of these things that are, many years ago, as a congressman, they called him Dr. No. He was a true constitutional conservative. The guys we have in there now, they can call themselves conservatives, but they're neoconservative, and they do not. We got to a situation where we got the U.S. Chamber of Commerce pushing really hard for amnesty. Guess who's sponsoring a lot of the Simpson ads right now? The U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They're bringing in lots of money in here to push that agenda. And I can guarantee you it's a globalism agenda. They want to bring this country down. It's all part of the globalist agenda.
I've got to do a weather forecast with Michael Rogers. When we come back, I want you to get into quickly our history, how it's being whitewashed, sanitized, and changed. Would you do that in just a minute?
You bet.
All right. We're going to have a weather forecast real quick, and it's brought to you by Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road in Jerome. Don't forget, absolutely Scarrows Meats, offering quality products at very reasonable rates. In addition to their expert meat cutting, they also have their own smokehouse, and I can tell you personally, their meat that comes out of that smokehouse is delicious. Selling taste one bite at a time. Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road in Jerome, 324-7657. Here's Michael Rogers' weather.
Hi, everyone. Michael Rogers for MichaelRogersWeather.com. Gives me a great privilege today and for the last 5 years to lie to you every day, although it's not going to be, I have nothing to lie to you about. You got sun and clouds out much of the day for today, and it's going to continue for about the next 12 days. Only our weather story will be going to get warmer as you keep working your way toward the weekend. 67 for the high for today, and then you're going to start working your way all the way into the 70s as you work your way into the weekend. Enjoy the day, enjoy the weather, it's the only weather you got.
Thank you, Michael. Brought to you this hour by some mighty fine folks. The best in quality products and reasonable rates. Expert meat cutting, Scarrows Meats. In Jerome, selling taste one bite at a time. Adrian, I've said for a long time on this program that if we were to take the history books from when you and I were in high school back in the 60s to today, you wouldn't even know it was the same United States history.
And the history we learned wasn't true anyway. That's the problem. And I'd like to go back clear to the 1850s when history really was changed, and basically why the Indians were put on reservations. I have all the empathy in the world for the Indians that have been, and they still are being maligned. They're still starved to death. They're put out. They've been hung out to dry. And I always tell people, if you think the federal government's going to take care of you, just look what they've done for the American Indians that were thrown off of their lands. They stole their lands, killed the buffalo and the bison, and put them on reservations in ungodly places long from where they should have been. But here's what happened in 1850. There was a man by the name of, and I can substantiate all of this, by the name of Lewis Henry Morgan. Lewis Henry Morgan basically was a Darwinian type. He was an evolutionist. He was an atheist, okay? And he, unfortunately, John Wesley Powell, the great Western explorer of the Grand Canyon, they got in cahoots together. They got together, and they basically became, John Wesley Powell became the most influential man in Congress. Non-elected man, because of his status as a Western explorer and folk hero. So Morgan and Powell, they formed the first National Academy of Sciences. They took over that, okay? They took over the Smithsonian Institute, and they went out and wantonly destroyed all the evidence that would prove that this country had tremendously highly civilized people living here at one time, long before Columbus got here. This is the history that, I know this is going to sound really far out to everybody out there, but I've researched it, I've studied it, and it's true. And I'm going to give Zeb a DVD that covers a lot of this, and I think he's going to have to watch it 2 or 3 times to be able to absorb it all. Okay. But I can guarantee you, folks, our history that we learned about how the Indians were put on reservations, and because of these men taking control of the National Academy of Sciences, Smithsonian, they had an agenda. Their agenda is evolution, and you cannot, if a reputable scientist in college today, he will not get tenure if he comes out as a creationist. He will not get tenure.
True.
There is no freedom of speech or no viewpoint. We're a Christian nation. God created this whole universe and the planet we live on, and all the evidence is true. Everybody says, as scientists, you don't believe in evolution? I said, absolutely not. Just look around you in nature. You cannot just throw these things together. Do you just take the pieces of a watch and throw them in a bag and dump them out on the table and finally get a watch? It doesn't happen. Just the human eye alone. But getting back to what these guys did, they convinced Congress and the president that the Indians were savages, always had been savages, and they forced Congress then through what they call manifest destiny. You talk about racism. They talked about putting white over red man. White over red man. The Indians were inferior, and so we're going to put them on the land. Of course, they were greedy. They wanted to steal their lands, and that was part of the deal. But that's kind of the bottom line, Zeb, is that everything that we've learned since that time has been really changed as far as science. And, if somebody wants to really get out and talk about global warming in an academic setting, fortunately, a few of these scientists are taking a stand. They're really true scientists, but there's a lot more that would like to say something, but until they get tenure, they're not going to say a word.
Well, let me ask you this, though. It's easy in some respects to condemn our forefathers and our history and say that we did this wrong and we did that wrong, but if you look at any and every society in the world, from Attila the Hun all the way to Alexander the Great, there always had to be a progression of one part of society over the other part of society for society to progress.
Well, that's true to an extent, but the history, I should say, the problem in this situation was there were just greedy men, people that had an ulterior motive, and like I say, they forced the Indians off the reservation, they killed off their buffalo, they killed off their livelihood. But the artifacts that are out there in this country, they have the Army Corps of Engineers wantonly destroy the artifacts that would prove that there was highly advanced civilizations on this continent.
Well, yeah, but then,
and in this country.
Let's go to the books themselves and the changes, the politics that has changed.
See, now
whether it's the Civil War, whether it was the Revolutionary War. Some books are even excluding the Revolutionary War.
Well, yeah, and so right, the whole educational system, even from the time they're not teaching the Constitution. I mean, it's just absolutely not being taught. The Constitution is the framework, the original manifest destiny and see, this is how Satan and his workers, and I'll use it Satan because these people are basically Satanists. They have taken the manifest destiny that the Founding Fathers talked about was to take our U.S. Constitution and our rights come from God to the world. And they twist it around so that the white man is superior over the Indians. You see how the perversion is? They take something and twist it. And they do it with everything else in society today. They twist everything around so that to fit their agenda. So right now we have there's a control on the media, there's a control on our education, our health care, and Zeb, the only thing left is gun control. And like we started, that's another thing in itself.
All right, now we've only got a matter of minutes left, and I want to hit gun control a little bit because I've had Joe Wolverton on the program many times. Joe was just on a couple of weeks ago. The audience really enjoys having him on, but he kind of gave a very sinister decree that he thought that gun control with this administration was going to take a severe turn left starting this summer, and you can kind of see an inclination that way. I'm very concerned about what's going to happen with gun control in this country.
We lose our guns, the ability to use our guns and so forth. It's all over. And I want to say something about militia. We hear this word militia all the time. It's been pointed out. Okay, here's the historical part of militia. The militias initially were set up each state governor had control over the militia in his state. Able-bodied men between, I think, 18 and 65 were required to have a weapon in his home and have ammunition to be at the beck and call of the governor in case of an emergency, in case of invasion or whatever. Article 4, Section 4, folks, says invasion. We're to be protected against invasion. What Frosty Woldridge has said, we're being invaded right now. Folks, get the Constitution out and read it and study it, because this is the framework that created the greatest country on the face of the planet in history, and we're letting it slide away because we're just we're too busy with our church work. If we do not preserve the liberty and freedom for future generations, we won't have churches.
The thing about the gun control, and I've been there, I've seen the caricature out in front of the United Nations with the twisted gun barrel, and we have heard lately, of course, with the new treaty signed by this country with the United Nations on more advanced and enhanced gun control. I wonder why the American public isn't really understanding how insidious this would be to take away the Second Amendment. And then you hear a former Supreme Court Justice, John Paul Stevens, come out and say he wants to add words to the Second Amendment, which would basically eliminate any private ownership of guns.
Well, yeah, and they're using it on the idea that it militias. Well, the militia, that wasn't it. The private ownership of gun was important. Folks, we got to prevent the con situation. We do not want a constitutional convention. I want a pat on the back. Our state legislators out there, Scott Bedke led the way to stop any, bringing up of a constitutional convention in this state. And because once they get their hold of the Constitution it's gone.
Absolutely.
And we'll never get it back.
Absolutely. I got to pay some bills here. Don't forget a great big spring tire sale going on at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family and Paul, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy over on Overland and Burley. All 7 locations serving you with the best of tires, the best in brake service, the best in, of course, shocks and struts, front end alignments, batteries. I'll go back to what I said a minute ago, the best in service. They really take care of you. So stop in. Now's a great time to make sure you got the best of safe driving tires on your car, your pickup, your SUV, horse trailer, boat trailer, whatever. Get ready to leave town safely with the best of tires from your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Those 7 locations serving you. Dr. Adrian Arp, I'm just flat out of time, but one last question, short answer on this. As you look and study what's happening with this administration in the last 2 years plus of what Obama wants and what he's trying to do with his pen and his phone, how concerned are you?
Well, I'm very concerned, and we need to get back involved in our civic responsibility to preserve this country. And we don't realize. Now, my grandfather came over here in 1903 from Germany after the Fabian Socialists had destroyed that country. That's been my motivation. He said, where are you going to go, Adrian, when the Socialists destroy this country? This was 1967 after LBJ passed the Great Society. And look at the mess we're in since that time. And, folks, we need to get back to Constitution. The laws by Congress. Congress should be a step in doing away, abolishing the EPA. Those are state functions, not federal functions, and everybody might disagree with that, but I can guarantee you the lands in the state need to come back to the states. Not, our forest fires on our lands, on state lands, are a lot less severe than on the federal lands. They put in the tank traps and all this stuff, the roadless stuff. We got to stop the white clouds thing. We don't need any more federal land. Amen. Simpson's wrong on that, and he's been wrong on a lot of issues, and we need to have a change in Congress.
Dr. Adrian Arp, thank you for taking the time to come out here today. And tomorrow on the program, it's Thursday tomorrow. Lots of interesting segments. Thank you, one and all. Zeb at the Ranch. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 8:06. Ride the horse for 3 hours. Remember, the way things were, the way things ought to be. See you tomorrow morning on Zeb at the Ranch.